Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
Thank you all for joining us on this Friday the 13th. And what a better show to have than when we get into some spooky stories with Simon and Rich from Bedtime Stories. Almost 664,000 YouTube subscribers. And we want to make sure that after tonight, they hit that 664,000 with all of you out there tonight who tune on into this show and enjoy their spooky stories. We're going to get to Bedtime Stories here momentarily, but first, let's give roll call in our chat room so far. Erismana with his, or her, I don't even know. Erismana with the first gold medal in their career as an SOR chatter. Race Fan with the silver medal. Awesome Ann Palmer taking home her first bronze. Nice to have you all here. Mama Susan, Grandpa Holland, Awesome Ann B., and there's the gorgeous Cosmic Floor, all hanging on out tonight, ready for the show. John Hinoyosa is here. He'll be signing autographs after the show. Line up to the left of the studio, if you don't mind, to the left of the studio. Good morning to you, Robert Garcia. Thanks for coming on in. James Weston, Grantavius. How are you guys? Northern Alabama Cryptid is here. They'll be signing autographs after the show as well. Line up to the right of the studio. To the right of the studio. All right, moving on. Kevin, Sensational Shelley, how are you? Thanks for coming on in. Mark Longoria, good to see you. As we continue on with roll call, there's Roy Boy. How you doing? Oh, the voice of the gods, Mysterion. How you doing, my friend over in the UK? Good morning to you. Patrick McGuire, thanks for coming on in. And who else do we got here? Oh, there's Dirty Filth. He's looking filthy as ever. Yes, he is. And who else is here so far? We have, let's see here. I've said hello to everybody. The vivacious Vixen Doe has returned. And the lovely Cindy. Glenn Dennison, welcome to SOR Chat. How you doing, man? Smithy, thank you so much for kicking off the Super Chat tonight with that super sticker. And the Super Chat is a wonderful way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis. So thank you so, so much. All right, there's Richard Elmore. Good to have you here. Well, we can officially start the show. Why? Because Doug Shelby is here. The Doug Shelby has arrived. Yes, he has. All right, Paranormal Lara. How you doing there, lovely Laura? Nice to have you here. The fedora-wearing John Hudson and Davey Crotch. How you doing, buddy? The gorgeous Fidgety Aura. Ozzy Ange. Drake. Nice to see you all here. And who else is joining us here? Mr. Lurks-a-Lot. Always a pleasure to have you here. Noble Patrick, 405er. Good to have you all here. And let's see, who else is joining us? Gordium, nice to have you back. Digger Dog, nice to see you. And there's, who else is here? Well, there's Bigfoot Michigan Rob. Yeah, he'll cast you a print in no time. Let's see, who else do we got here? Hi, Bobbert, nice to have you here. The lovely Gemini Moon. And Al Menial, good to have you here. Let's see, Supernova, Parkway, nice to see you guys as we continue scrolling. Steve Wolf, the lovely Carol Indy, China, what's happening? Welcome to SOR Chat. And who else? The gorgeous Cryptid Huntress, Michio Kaki, how you doing? Welcome to SOR Chat. Terry Hall, I hope your hair looks great tonight. And we better start the radio feed because that is kind of important for what we do around here. Let's see, who else am I missing here? D Worm, the gorgeous Kira. Thank you for joining us. And let's see here. Uncle Dale and his Power Stash are here. Remember, if you're in Austin, Texas, and you see Uncle Dale, rub his Power Stash for good luck right through July 4th. G West, nice to have you here. And D Cohen, thanks for coming on in. Penman, good to see you. Oob to Joe's Maine, you've got Lola. Yes, you do. And I think we're caught up. Once again, the Super Chat is a wonderful way to support this show. Our store is open on our website if you want to pick up any SOR swag. And if you're a veteran tuning us on in, thank you for your service. You always have a safe home here in our chat room. Evan Walters, how you doing? Horns up. Let's rock. From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. You'll do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. You can follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot, reading Shirky Poo's Newswire. Check out our swag as well. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. We got a great show for you tonight. The team from Bedtime Stories has got up early in the UK to share some of their creepy encounters and stories that they have for us. And then, in hour number 3, we will bring you a story from the swamp, courtesy of Swamp Dweller. Fedora John is back for the Cryptid Report, and Shirky Poo has the news. Here we go. Turn off the lights, get into bed, and plug in your earphones. It's time for a little creepy bedtime story. Yes, these gentlemen are Fortean at heart, and they cover anything that is even remotely strange, from the paranormal to the supernatural, unsolved mysteries, strange deaths, conspiracy theories, cryptids, and every alien in between. All told, it's in a unique and creepy way. As they post on YouTube, they're one of the biggest storytime channels out there, almost 664,000 subscribers. We welcome in Simon, Rich, and Mikey from Bedtime Stories. And gentlemen, thank you so much for being with us. I don't know where Mikey went. He was just here moments ago, but we'll get him back on. How you doing, guys? Thank you so much for coming on Spaced Out Radio.
Yeah, we're all good. Thank you for having us.
Good morning.
It's good to have you. Good morning. And, you know, it's kind of weird because as we're broadcasting this, it's getting daylight over there. It's still daylight here in British Columbia. So I find that kind of interesting. One of those. And, Mikey's a little bit loud on it. Yeah, he's got his hair dryer going. I don't know what that is, but that's okay. That's okay. Let's start learning about you guys here. And, you know, Bedtime Stories has been going since 2017 on YouTube, and you guys have really taken this storytelling to a whole different level, bringing in people and their encounters and stories that you've found all over the world. Rich, let me know how this got started for you.
Originally, it started as an idea that me and my brother had. We were going to set up a website many years back. I think that had problems on Mikey's.
Gotta mute you. Go ahead, Rich.
Yeah, so as I was saying, it started as an idea that me and my brother had. I was going to write stories. He was an artist, so he would have done the artwork for it, and we were just going to put those on a website, and that didn't kind of pan out in the end. So eventually, we just kind of evolved into an idea of putting it onto YouTube instead. And my brother passed away in 2014, which is one of the reasons, the original idea of having a website didn't go forward. So I searched for an artist that could kind of replicate his style. Found Mikey through a freelancer site, and originally he was just going to do artwork for the thumbnails. I think it wasn't an initial idea to have the artwork running all the way through the episodes, but that's what it kind of evolved into in the end. So yeah, that's basically how it started, and we uploaded our first video on January the 30th, 2017.
Now, when you put this together and decided to do this, Rich, did you ever think that it would come to a day where this would be like a career?
No. More than anything, it was just something I wanted to share with my friends, and it just kind of snowballed from there.
Well, let's bring in Simon here, because he's got a fantastic beard and mustache combination, and we like that around here. Simon, when we bring you in, how did you feel about this whole idea of starting this YouTube channel telling spooky stories?
I was quite late to the party, to be honest. I was already a subscriber on the channel. It had been going for about 18 months, 2 years when I came along, and Rich held a bit of a talent contest. He was looking for a writer, and I'm by no means professional or trained, but I applied and put my script in, and I wasn't successful. I think he told me I came third or fourth out of the candidates he had. But I hung in there. I kept going, and here I am 2 years later. So I was just quite honoured, to be honest. That I think this is something you touched on when you were speaking to us earlier, the international nature of it. Finding out stories like Yuba City, for example, just really, it was like catnip for me. It hooked me. So now to be able to research those and then write scripts for them, I love it. It's great.
Now, when you got started in this and started writing these stories, how did you guys manifest this channel? Rich, I'm sure I got to start with you on this one, but did you manifest it this way, or did it form this way over time when you saw what the people like?
It manifested this way, to be honest. The idea that we had originally is still very much essentially what we've got now. So it's just a matter of telling stories interspersed with nice artwork to kind of depict the scenes, and nothing much has changed really. I mean, we've upped our game a little bit with added animations and parallax kind of images to give it more depth. But the initial idea is still very much the same. So yeah.
Simon, what do you think the appetite is for people who are attracted to these kinds of stories? Because I got to admit, I go to bed listening to these types of stories each and every night after this show, and I just love it. I love the fact that I can go to bed, listen to some creepy personal encounters that people are having in this beautiful world of ours, because there's so many mysteries out there.
Certainly, when I've been researching topics, we cover stories from all over the world. And one of the pushes that Rich has is that we don't just do UK-based ones. We don't just do US ones. We go everywhere. And I think one of the things I've noticed is that you find some commonalities. We did an episode called America's Vampires, which was looking at vampire stories from the US. And when you actually start looking at the idea of vampires, that they're everywhere. Pretty much every culture has some sort of story revolving around a demon that drinks blood, or an undead person, or a disease. And I think that's one of the things that pulls people in, that there's these commonalities worldwide, like the night hag, vampires, succubus. And no, that's the scary thing. If you look at something, for example, like the Sasquatch, that's a North America-based lore. But then when you go to some other things and find out that on every country in the world, on every continent, there are stories like this, it worries you a little bit. It makes you think.
Well, then I won't show you the footprint that I casted the other day. How about that? I don't want to scare you. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think we've even got Sasquatch stories in the UK. There's there's an area called Cannock Chase where people have apparently seen like a Bigfoot kind of creature, which is weird to me because I'd never thought we'd have any kind of reports of anything like that. So it's interesting.
I want to test out Mikey's audio here. Is it Mikey or Mickey? What are you going by?
Mikey,
perfect. Okay. We do have a little bit of feedback here. We got a speaker on. Something. And Let's see where we are here. I'm not hearing it.
Can you hear me?
Oh, now we can. Now we can. Now you're beautiful. Now you're
Okay.
beautiful. Thank you for the audio there. How did you end up getting involved with these guys here?
Well, it's actually the same story as Rich said. I was searching for, for a little job and found Rich on Freelancer. So I tried and applied, doing some sketches. And at first it was, a bit, these sketches were a bit like, like some fast sketches. It was like another style than what we are making today. So the Rich approved the sketch, and like this is how we go.
It's awesome to have you here as well, and to have all three of you here, because one of the things that you guys are doing is you are scouring the world for any type of weird, strange story. And Simon, do you find these stories are popping up almost on the daily from every type of country out there?
Yeah, and there's quite a nice range as well. We've got quite one of the richest strengths, I think, and one of the things that's made the channel so successful is accessibility. And we're always quite keen to get back to people when they contact us with stories and to note them down, to chase them. Most of the people that contact us, know a good ghost story or a good monster story from their neck of the woods, and you start researching and go on the internet. And what we like to do is find stories people haven't heard of. Some of the less popular ones, things like Jack the Ripper, for example, have been done to death. So we'll then go and look for something a little bit more fringe. And I think that's why people like to come back, because there's some stories that you can find anywhere. And in other stories, I mean, certainly from a UK point of view, I think one of our best videos was the Husac tunnel hauntings. And I'd never heard of that before I researched it. So it's quite nice to be able to, I think our channel gives people the chance to travel. They can travel without the airfare, if that makes sense.
Well, I mean, the fun that you guys have in choosing these topics. Mikey, let's find out what's your favorite topic that you guys do.
Well, hard question, Favorite topic? Well, let's say mysteries, ghosts. I like kind of that, and of course history. What reflects to some history incidents, like Dyatlov Pass or something like that.
Right on. How about for you, Rich? Do you have a favorite topic?
Yeah, I kind of like the disappearances. The strange disappearances that got no kind of explanation. My favourite mystery is probably Flannel's Lighthouse Mystery up in Scotland. And incidentally, that's the first story we ever did on the channel. That's the first video we uploaded. So, yeah.
And how about for you, Simon?
I do love a good ghost story. And I think the scripts that I get the most invested in are where someone's taken a location like the Myrtles Plantation or Leap Castle, and then just to sort of delve into the ghosts there and what the historical stories are behind them.
So for all of you, when you guys get into your meetings, you decide which way we're going to go. How long does it take you guys to build an actual episode?
It's probably about a week's worth of work, really. Simon's quite a fast writer, actually. He turns around stories quite quick, depending on his workload with his day job. And then I've got to go through and edit it and pick out what scenes we're going to kind of depict the artwork. And then it takes Mikey about a week to draw all of the images that go along with the episode. And then obviously you've got the recording of the narration, the selection of the music. So yeah, I'd say from start to finish, probably 2 or 3 weeks, but we kind of pull everything together within 1 week, maybe.
Okay, so with that, how many episodes are you working on at a time?
2 at a time, most of the when it's just as I'm finishing off the post production on one episode, Mike is already drawing the artwork for the next. Simon's already writing the next. He's probably got 3 scripts in advance, I think, Simon, at the minute.
Very cool. Very cool. So when you guys put this together, Rich, and you were building your team, I mean, you have to have a lot of solids that are going in order for it to work. You know, you have to have solid writing, you have to have solid imagination, you have to have solid facts, you have to be able to really paint that picture for the audience. How do you go about painting that picture behind the scenes?
You're probably better off directing that at Simon, to be honest, because he's writing most of the episodes at the minute, I think. So it's his words that really paint the picture. So sorry to pass the book there.
No problem.
It's about depth of material, really. We'll have people contact us and say, "Oh, this will make a great story." Ultimately, it's got to be 20 minutes worth of material, and it's got to be engaging. We've got to have a beginning and a middle and end to it. And if you've got stories where your witness testimony is one person, and there are no other eyewitnesses to it, no other physical evidence to it, or you have stories that are just so amazingly fantastic but have been debunked, we have to look at it and say, look, can we get a 20-minute episode out of this? Can we have an argument and a counter argument? Because that's again one of the strengths of the channel. We don't lead people. We don't tell them what's happened. We will present what the alleged facts are, and then both arguments, so that people make their mind up. And we've got to have an argument either way. I don't think Rich would run a story if it was all just, this is what happened and this is what you need to believe. We have to build in a counter argument to it.
Yeah.
And for you guys, knowing that you guys you're not Creepypasta, I think we should clarify that right now. You are actually searching for real stories that are going on. How many emails are you guys getting a day from listeners wanting to share their stories with you?
Quite a lot, to be honest. It doesn't number in the hundreds. It's quite manageable, but yeah, we've got a list. We've got a whole spreadsheet, and it's not just people's personal stories. It's like Simon said earlier. It's stories from their neck of the woods. So, for instance, I think somebody emailed and suggested Dover Demon, and we did that quite recently. I think that was the last video we did, actually. But yeah, we put them all into a list in an Excel sheet, and then we just go through and decide to research them or contact the person if it was a personal story and ask for more information. And if their personal story kind of collects into like a bigger narrative within that area, we'll probably do an episode that focuses on that kind of phenomenon. For instance, we did an episode called Highways of Horror. So we had quite a few stories from people who wrote in about encounters they'd had on the road, whether it was with a UFO or some weird looking cryptid or, a ghost, and we kind of collected all those stories into one and made we've done a series, actually. We've done 2 episodes on that. So
have any of you ever had, because you're dealing with the paranormal world, have you ever had what we call the hitchhiker effect, where you get so engrossed in a story or the same type of accounts that all of a sudden that energy kind of has rubbed off on you guys? Have you ever, any of you ever had that?
I've had experiences in the past which were quite weird, but I wouldn't say it's increased any more or less since we started doing this. I mean, there is something weird about this house that's happened quite a few times, and I did go to the landlord and say, has anybody died in this house? And he said, no, not as far as I know. He lived in this house himself 20 years ago. It's only about 20 years old, I think. Interestingly, it's built on top of an old woods, and these woods have got a folklore, quite a few ghost stories centered around the woods. So I don't know whether maybe the ghostly occurrences that happen in here are as a result of that.
How about for you, Simon?
It's again, I suppose for me, it goes back to the ghost stories, because certainly in terms of geography, a lot of the American stories that we cover, we're looking at huge forested, wooded areas, or the Great Lakes, or Canada, and the Alaska Triangle. That doesn't really equate to the topography that we've got over here. But a ghost story, you can get them from anywhere. You can get historic ones or modern ones. And I think there are a couple of scripts where when I've got really down into the meat of it, if there's a bump in the night afterwards, it makes me think twice.
And Mikey, have you got any hitchhiker effect type of action around you?
Hard to tell. Think no.
I don't believe you. You seem to be
Why?
holding back a little bit. You seem to be holding back.
No,
Do you
I
know,
don't think so.
Can I just say we have actually done personal stories on the Bedtime Stories channel. Me and Simon have both put personal stories up. Mike is the only one who hasn't. And
The way
to be honest, it's because I asked him and he said that I've never really experienced anything really creepy or weird. So
So you got to believe me.
yeah.
Okay, I'll give you that one. I'll give you the free pass on that one. Guys, we got about 3 minutes here before we got to go to break at the bottom of the hour. We have Simon, Rich, and Mikey from Bedtime Stories over in the United Kingdom who woke up early for all of us here in North America tonight. And I want to ask you guys, as we prepare for the next half hour, do you all kind of believe what you're writing and what people are saying, or do you have some sort of skepticism that goes along with it? Simon, you're the writer. Let's start with you on this one.
It depends on the story, to be honest. But again, you look at some of the cryptid episodes, and Sasquatch, for example, the number of sightings and the large range of sightings and the commonalities to the sightings, it's hard not to see that something is there. There's definitely a story. You have to accept that some of it is fantastic, but there doesn't seem any reason for people to lie about it. So yes, I don't think I could write the scripts if on some level I wasn't believing what was down there.
How about for you, Rich?
Again, it depends on the story. Some of the more outlandish ones I kind of have a bit of trouble with. I can kind of believe the ghost stories because I've had ghost experiences myself. I've seen a couple of UFOs. But I'd say the ones I probably have more trouble believing are the cryptid ones. Incidentally, I do actually believe in Bigfoot. I do think there's some creature out there that we haven't seen yet, or it's not been discovered by modern science. But the things like Mothman and what's the other ones? The night flyers and things like that in Vietnam. I have a bit of trouble with that. I'm a bit on the fence. I'm open-minded, but I'm not fully on board with believing.
Well, you come to British Columbia anytime, we'll show you where the Sasquatch are. How about that? I just found a brand new area, casted some prints yesterday, and was having a lot of fun playing around in the forest, seeing some weird stuff happening there. That's only about 10 kilometers from my house. So hey, Sasquatch is around. All you got to do is make the trek over. It'll be fun. I promise you. None of us will go missing.
I'll hold you to that.
Well, hey, I stay away from the rock gardens for a reason. That's where it all seems to happen. Is you got to stay away from the rock gardens. All right, gentlemen, I'm going to get you all to hold on here because we are going to go to break here at the bottom of the hour on Spaced Out Radio, and we are proud to have the creators of Bedtime Stories, a highly popular YouTube channel, talking all things spooky on their channel. They're coming up on 664,000 subscribers, and I'm subscribed. I expect all of you out there to subscribe to their channel. Why not? It's all worth it. And we're all in it together to bring these fun, interesting, and entertaining stories to you. Joining us tonight from Bedtime Stories, Simon, Rich, and Mikey. And when we return, we're going to bug them for some stories and entertaining from all over the world. We're in for a good night of radio right here on the Mighty SOR. Stay tuned. Second half hour is next. All right, we're clear.
Good stuff.
That was a quick half hour.
Yeah, seems to fly by.
Yeah. So now we got about 5 minutes here where we just kind of can sit here and look at each other foolishly and not say anything. Shoot shit. Here, let
Well,
me show you something. My casting broke on me last night. It broke on me. When I put it on my shelf, it broke on me. That's the print we got yesterday.
What's that?
Sasquatch print.
Oh,
Come on, Mike.
so is that from nearby or?
Yeah, I that was from our site that we found the other day.
Wow, I'd love to be able to. I'd love to live in that sort of area. I think I'd be out every day searching for Sasquatch.
Oh,
I think.
dude, we found more prints up in the forest area. Like all of a sudden you come across and you're like walking through the dirt and grass and you see these giant like flat marks, and then you all of a sudden see the outline of toes. It's kind of cool, man. It's kind of cool. We here, let me show you what I'm talking about here. Hold on.
Have you actually seen a Sasquatch yourself, or
Two.
Wow.
I in 2013, me and a buddy came within 100 feet of two of them, and then in 2018, where I live now, my another couple buddies and I actually got chased out of the forest by two of them. We never saw them. We did hear the one actually talking. You know, it was like where I live, okay, is extremely rural. And when you go 34 kilometers into the forest and then you take a back trail where there's only one way in and one way out, you know there's nobody out there. You know, and this one that was chatting with us, it was weird. It was weird.
I've heard I think it was on a David Paulides documentary. He showed, I can't remember what the area is, but it was quite famous for Bigfoot sightings, and they set up like a camp, and they were chased out of there. But they got recordings of the Sasquatch shouting at them, or it's some kind of weird language. Anyway, it wasn't English, but it was very human-like in its delivery.
This is one that we found the other day. If you start off by the heel, you could kind of see how it starts off very thin, getting very wide near the top,
and it kind of bends round.
Yeah,
sort of thing. Yeah, I can see.
Yeah, that. we found about 7 or 8 of those yesterday.
Wow. So, are you more sort of into ghosts or sort of Sasquatch or aliens, or what's your?
I am more of a cryptid UFO guy, alien guy. I've had some weird experiences in my life that I can't explain, and it's just kind of like when I started this show in 2014. I call it retired from radio, quit radio, mainstream radio as a journalist well, if we're sharing the VIX here, hold on. There we go, Mikey. I got one too. But I never expected to get back into radio, and then I got convinced to. So we started this up. One thing we should say is just I'm going to quickly say hello to a bunch of people who are here. Cable Guy Matt is here, everyone. Remember, if you hit up Cable Guy Matt, he will send you an autograph-free piece of coaxial cable, courtesy of Cable Guy Matt. Remember, folks, you cannot buy these in stores. Limit 1 per household. He's watching us on a 185-inch television he has in his basement right now. And let's see who else is here. I'm way behind in the chat room. Thank you to Angel Wings, Cat Chaser, Shelly, D. Cohen, and Smithy for the amazing super chats. Very much appreciate the love and support that you have for SOR, and of course to all the veterans out there. Thank you so much for tuning us in. You always have a safe home here at the Mighty SOR. And you can do some shopping on our website, spacedoutradio.com. Here comes the second half hour. Second half hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears. I want to remind you that if you missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do us the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. From the highly successful YouTube channel Bedtime Stories, we have Rich, Simon, and Mikey joining us from the channel as they are telling us all about the creepy bedtime stories that they share with the world. They have almost 664,000 subscribers as they continue to put out a plethora of topics of spooky stories from around the world. Gentlemen, welcome back. Appreciate you.
Hey.
Simon, I want to start with you on this one because you're the writer of everything. And this, usually I don't take questions until the second hour, but this is kind of pertinent to what we're talking about. One of our new listeners, Sadie Rowe, is wondering, what's the difference between Creepypasta and what you guys are doing? Because Creepypasta is supposed to be fictional type writing.
I think certainly with the growth of the internet, there's a bit of crossover, to be honest. Because my understanding of the Creepypasta was that you don't sell it as real. You sell it as fictional, but as close to real as you can get. And I think certainly with some of the more modern stories that we research, when you look for the witness stories on the internet, there's stuff there that you could argue is creepypasta because it's not verifiable. So it's inevitable that with some of the stories we covered, some creepypasta stuff will have crept in. But part of the purpose of what we do is they're supposed to be genuine stories. They're supposed to be stories that the people have experienced, that you could experience if you travel to that part of the world. So I think a bit of creepypasta does bleed in occasionally, where some people have read fictional material and taken it as gospel. And sometimes you get websites that have picked up on creepypastas and sold them as genuine cryptids. So it's hard. Where we can, we try and steer away from it. But it's not always that easy, because if stories are popular, everyone picks them up, puts them out there, and after a while they become genuine stories just because people believe them.
And Rich, do you have an opinion on that?
Yeah, it's pretty much the same, to be honest. We kind of try to avoid anything that's fictional. I think we might have covered one or two by accident. I think UB65 was actually a creepypasta, original creepypasta from way back when they used to write books on these things. And but it's been sold over time so much as a genuine story that, you know, you kind of the lines become blurred and you just don't know where to categorize it, I suppose. But yeah, pretty much what Simon said there. We try to choose stuff that's not fictional. We actively avoid that.
Yeah, what we want is witness names. What we want is to be able to say, look, you know, there's a little bit of genuine to this because you've got real people who you can trace back, who have done newspaper interviews or TV interviews, or you know, can be traced back to an address and there's some fact behind it. And we're trying to avoid stories that are just based on a Reddit user said this, or somebody anonymous came onto a chat forum and said this, and I think that keeps us just the right side of the line. Yeah.
Although we have done stories in the past where we have taken somebody's account from Reddit. If it's to do with a particular category that we're talking about, then yeah, we're open to taking those kind of stories on.
Okay, let's start. You guys get reports and stories from all over the world here. You know, we're used to the ones in North America. Let's start off where you are in the United Kingdom. And Simon, maybe you could share us a good haunted story that's come to you guys recently.
I mean, one of the ones that I connected with, I'm originally from the Midlands, slap bang in the middle of the UK, as Rich is, but I transplanted myself down to the southwest, down to Devon, which is big cat territory. So while we haven't got Bigfoot in this country, there are quite a lot of big cat stories, and certainly one of the stories from that, there's a Royal Marine base down in Lympstone, down in Devon, and they were actually called out during the 1980s because there was a big cat allegedly terrorising the countryside, slaughtering farmer sheep, and you just think, why would you send 4 Royal Marine sniper teams out into the Devon countryside for no reason? It just doesn't smell right, and that's the sort of thing that makes me think, well, there's got to be something to it. So I'm right down in the middle of big cat territory now. So when I'm out walking at night, I listen for the rustle of the bushes.
What kind of report? Go ahead, Rich.
I was going to say, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there. I was going to say, which might sound a bit tame to you because you obviously live in British Columbia, where you probably have big cats like these.
Actual
Yeah. So, but in the UK, obviously, we don't have any. I mean, the most dangerous wildlife we have is probably a squirrel. So, you know,
you go 3 kilometers from my house, man, and everything out there wants to kill you. Everything. The black bears, the grizzly bears, the badgers, the mountain lions, the lynx, the bobcats, the moose, even the deer want to kill you. You know, it's not like, thank God we don't have like poisonous snakes up here, man. Otherwise, I would just never go in the forest. But never mind the fact that around here we also have legends of Sasquatch. And then if you go to the east of where we are, which would be behind me, you have Dogman reports. And the First Nations around here claim to have, or claim to say that there are actually villages of little people up in the mountains. So you have a lot to deal with in just this area, let alone the actual real animals that, you know, don't want you trouncing around in their territory. I mean, you come near a 1,700 pound moose, they're angry. Why? Probably because they're ugly, but that's just the way it is.
But I mean, I think Rich mentioned it earlier on. One of the areas up in the Midlands where we grew up is called Cannock Chase. And that has got all manner of stuff associated with it. It's got UFO sightings, ghost sightings, monsters, and black-eyed children. That's another one that comes out of there, which is quite terrifying.
It's almost like the UK's version of Skinwalker Ranch, isn't it?
Wow. Is that near Rendlesham?
No, nowhere near.
Absolutely.
Well, tell us, you know what? Black-eyed kid stories freak me out because my buddy on January 2nd down in Washington State actually had a black-eyed kid come up to his fence, and he's got it all on video that child, when he went and replayed the tape, that child that he was talking to, and there was only a fence between them, was not there.
Oh, my God.
Yeah,
That's
his
creepy.
security cameras saw no child whatsoever. So tell us a good black-eyed kid story from the UK.
Simon's probably best to do this. He wrote the episode on black-eyed kids. Well,
I think we actually rewrote Black-Eyed Kids after a while.
That's right. Yeah.
And the question is, you know, what are they? Certainly, the original episode that we wrote, there was tie-in with the Men in Black and UFOs and them riding around in cars. But then they also move over to ghost stories as well and demons. And certainly, again, Cannock Chase, a couple of years back, with the growth of drones, you get people going out there and flying their drones around and just catching sight of sort of female figures in white dresses staring back at them out of the tree line, and that gets quite scary.
So do you have a favorite story, Simon, that has come across your way that really maybe gave you the heebie-jeebies?
I'd have to think about it, to be honest. What you mentioned First Nation stories earlier, and researching that, it just strikes me that every tribe has several stories in it, which when you actually start scratching down to the surface, the stories behind how people turned into those monsters are quite horrific. Sort of the curses and the rituals that have gone into them. You look at the Wendigo and how people turned into Wendigos, the Bok, the Skinwalker, and it's pure nightmare fuel. Like it's scarier than anything Hollywood can come up with.
Very true. Mikey, do you have a story that's kind of freaked you out a little bit?
That's a question of time. I need to think about it. Let's see.
We went a bit down a rabbit hole in terms of nautical mysteries, and again, me and Rich are Midlanders. We're about as far removed as a coast as you can get in the Midlands. But the Great Lakes stories are the gift that keep on giving. We just keep going back to the Great Lakes for ships and aircraft that have gone missing there, and the Bermuda Triangle. And I think that's another pull for people. If you've got a disappearance, and it's a disappearance where there's absolutely no evidence at all as to where they've gone, then people keep coming back to it, hoping that something will filter out about it. Flight 19 is always a banker. People are still trying to figure that one out years down the line.
You know, you talk about people who go missing, and around here, living in British Columbia, you know, the North Shore Mountains just east of Vancouver, right behind Vancouver, are number 2 on David Politis's list for missing 411, where people mysteriously just vanish. Do you guys have a lot of people over there mysteriously vanishing in weird circumstances?
Well, according to David Politis, the UK is one of the I think it's the third after the US and Australia. Oh, sorry, North America. Let's say North America, including Canada as well. I think after North America and Australia, the UK is probably the third. And he's pointed to the fact that we have a lot of people dying in water-based scenarios, so the canals of Manchester, and you know his whole take on these disappearances occurring near water and boulder fields. So yeah, we do kind of have. It's not something that I'm highly aware of in this country, disappearances, but according to his take on it, we probably the third most prominent in that area.
We touched on this. What was Rich? What was the name of the town we did in Canada recently where they had the disappearances?
Oh, it was Alaska. That was Nome, wasn't it?
No. We touched on this with Nome, and when you look at missing persons figures, they're usually quite high, because in that you'll have people that go missing for a short period of time, or regular missing people, or people that have been voluntary missing. And when you actually tap down to the number of mysterious or unsolved ones, it's a lot shorter. But we haven't got the wide open spaces up here to do it. The chances are people are going to stumble across each other. But certainly when we've done a couple of episodes on mountain ranges where people have gone hunting, the Lost Dutchman's gold mine, and you just keep finding headless bodies that people, sort of 10, 15 years that went in. And then that then spread into the Nahanni Valley as well, which is a similar thing. Gold prospectors going into remote areas and just finding headless corpses further down the line. And you just start thinking, that ain't right. There should be a reason why that's happening.
I cannot find anybody who will come on record about the Nahanni Valley in the Northwest Territories. I mean, those headless victims, I want to talk about that, man. I want to get a camera and go in there, but apparently there is some sort of monster in there, and I'm not sure if it's Sasquatch or something completely different that really doesn't like people in their heads, you know. I mean, I just don't get it. I don't get it whatsoever.
Possibly a long-lost Native American tribe, or
you know what? It could be. It could be. But one of the weird stories I heard about that area was that there was a film crew, a documentary film crew, or a journalist or something wanted to go into that area and rented a helicopter. And the helicopter said, I'll be back in like 30 minutes. They only allowed like 30 minutes to go in that area. Helicopter dropped them off, did a circle, started to leave, hovered, then came back. and landed and picked them up and said, "We got to get you out of here now." And when they asked why, all the helicopter pilot would say it wasn't safe for you, and it's best that you leave. I mean, it was that quick.
Wow.
And that's one of the only other stories that I've heard besides the legends that everything goes. But I mean, it's just crazy how people are just disappearing. Rich, do you think that maybe a lot of these people who are disappearing are not being taken by monsters, but maybe are walking into different dimensions or through portals into another world?
I'm open-minded to the possibility, but I think most of the disappearances in this, particularly in wooded areas, probably due to misadventure. And when you get lost in the woods, you get lost in the woods, especially how big the woods are in America. Everywhere you look, or North America, everywhere you look looks the same. So unless you know the area well, the chances are you're going to get lost if you go off the trails, the established trails and things. But it's interesting you mention that, because we're actually doing an episode that's coming up soon on people who have nearly gone missing in the woods. So it's kind of like a sequel to, we did an episode, one of the first episodes we did was called There Is Something in the Woods. We've done a part 2 of that, and this part 3 is going to be based on people who have had near misses. So for instance, there was one story about a couple of kids who lived on the edge of the woods. The tree line actually met their backyard, and they kept seeing something behind a tree about 50 meters away from them. So they walked in after, and it was a kind of weird thing. That's something they couldn't really describe. And once they got inside the woods, it would appear again another 50 meters away, and it kept going back and back and back. And they realized that they were being pulled into the woods. What seemed like 5 minutes passed, and they found themselves almost a mile away from their house. So, it's stories like that. They kind of broke out of this kind of trance that they were in and walked back to their house. So, yeah, near misses.
That is creepy. That is creepy. I mean, the fact that is happening to real people, I mean, what kind of trauma do you think these people are having when you interview them, Simon, and talk to them and get to know their stories more for details?
It's just the complete lack of an explanation. And the story that Rich has just mentioned is a good one. It's just that you go over it in your head as many times as you want, but it doesn't make sense. And that's certainly true of the cryptid episodes, where you've got people who are out in the fringes of the wilderness and they've seen something big and something scary, and it's just so strange, so you can't relate to it at all, and that leaves a long-lasting effect of people desperate to know answers but not wanting to try and find out what those answers are.
No, very true. I mean, finding those answers can be just as scary as the encounter itself. For you guys, Mikey, when you are drawing and trying to describe and paint a picture for people during the stories, how do you capture the emotion in your art of what the people are feeling?
Well, actually, Rich sent me the brief, so he clearly sent me some details about the illustration, like how it must look. So he sent me references. Sometimes he even do the concepts, and I starting doing from that. In the meantime of the process, I do then I redo sometime, starting over, if it doesn't work, or changing. I hate to say it, but it really depends. It depends, how it must look, how it must capture the emotion or something like that.
Yeah, there's
Right.
a couple of times, sorry, where I've sent him a picture and say this person needs to look shocked, and there's kind of a miscommunication. His version of shocked is different to my perception of shocked. So it's kind of a work in progress.
No, for sure. you have to capture that emotion, though. I mean, that's what people are going through. That's tough.
We have been caught out a couple of times, particularly if you're looking at going back to stories around the 50s and 60s, where in our heads we will form a picture of what the protagonist looks like. And then the last minute when Richard sent the brief, he'll suddenly stumble across a photo of somebody and they're the wrong age, gender, or ethnicity. And we have to quickly panic and get Mike to change the picture around.
That actually happened with the Skateboard Swamp episode. The kid whose car was attacked by this lizard man. I put the episode up, and I briefed to, I think it was Christian who did the artwork for that, not Mikey. I briefed to him that just to draw some guy, and obviously he drew like a white guy, and the kid who the kid who saw it was actually African American. So immediately I was like, somebody got in touch. I think we released it on Patreon first, so early access subscribers kind of picked up. One person messaged and said, I think you should look at the picture of the guy who saw this monster, because your depiction isn't quite correct. It being as diplomatic as he could, and I ripped the video down straight away and went back to the artist and said that you have to draw him as an African American rather than a white guy, because people are sensitive about this and we need to kind of get that fixed. And then we re-uploaded and all was good. Nobody noticed in the end, I don't think so. Yeah.
It is getting harder and harder to write scripts without as the audience has grown. It is harder to write things that people don't get sensitive about, to be honest. It's getting the language that we use and some of the concepts. It's hard for us because we want to use the experiences of the language of the people that were involved and the words they would have used and their thoughts and how they've judged things. Sometimes that's not really conversant with how things are going these ways, and it's getting hard for us to negotiate a minefield of scripts without people sort of coming at us now and saying, oh, we don't agree with that, we don't think you should use that word, we don't agree with how you've depicted this person. And we have to come back and say, look, if we're doing a story from the 1800s, that's how people thought back then. We're not advocating it, but we're also not going to PC it up for today's audience.
That has to be difficult. I've never thought about that before. And how do you judge your audience on content? As we got about 2 minutes to go, how do you judge with the ever evolving thinking and the sensitivities of audiences today?
Rich mentioned that we have an early access facility, and that's what usually tends to feed it back. We have sort of paid subscribers who get it a week early, and certainly we did scripts on the Myrtles plantation the other week. And one of the stories is about the ghost of and depending on some of the words that have been used in the past, a slave or a servant girl. And straight away when we put it up there, we got a lot of feedback saying, you can't say that she was his lover if she was a slave. That's servitude. And it got to the point where Rich literally had to pull it away, rewrite a portion of the script and put it back again, because about 1 in 10 people were going, we don't like this, and you shouldn't represent it like this, and you're perpetuating stereotypes. So it's feedback usually.
Yeah, and it wasn't intentional at all on our part. We weren't. It was. I think sometimes in the editing process, you just become blind to the actual story, and you're more focused on the flow and on just getting the story out there. And yeah, I hate to say it, but you kind of become desensitized, kind of thing. So you don't really pick up on what other people might pick up on.
How do you get around the YouTube algorithms for something like that, though?
You tell us.
We don't talk about. There's certain words that we know that we can't use. I mean, we can't depict anybody being hanged or talk about suicide too much. Those subjects are big no-nos on YouTube's kind of algorithm. We get demonetized straight away on any content that kind of talks about that subject.
Right. Well, gentlemen, we're going to come back here after a break for hour number 2 as we have the guys from Bedtime Stories over in the United Kingdom. We have Simon, Rich, and Mikey hanging on out with us, talking about all the weird, strange stories that they are going through and writing for their incredible YouTube channel, which is called Bedtime Stories. And if you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you go check it on out. If you're in our chat room, I have posted the link for you guys to go hit subscribe. They're almost at 664,000 subscribers who tune on in for their creepy, real, true, freaky stories. Hour 2 is next. Gentlemen, we got about 6 minutes here, and I am going to just step away for a minute. Remember, our YouTube audience is in there watching. If you go up in your right-hand corner where it says private message, you'll see a section for comments. And the YouTube audience, you'll be able to see what they have, and you can chat with them for a minute, okay?
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. It's one of those little things we do. Hold on. I'll be right back.
Just looking through right now.
Is Luke coming in, Rich? Do you know?
He is, and I think
In a class.
yeah, he's in a class at the moment. But he said I think about an hour after, so anytime momentarily he should be coming in. But yeah. These comments. How are you?
Fine.
I see you look tired, but I'm not one to talk.
Don't look that tired, to be fair.
Does he even sleep? I don't think he does he?
Well, every time I contact him, he's always on his messaging. So even if it's 2 o'clock in the morning, he's probably still drawing away. Oh, somebody mentioned Space Geek. That's Joshua, that is. I know that guy.
Yeah, I recognised a couple of the names earlier on.
Yeah, he actually wrote the Bell Witch episode, so that's why he's mentioned that. He's just, I think he's after a shout out there. It's that's the one instance where we've had a subscriber actually write an episode, I think. Otherwise, it's me and you, Simon.
Just remember that when the book royalties come through.
Oh yeah, I was actually going to say to you about that because Volume 2 is imminent. I'm just finishing editing off the last 10 chapters. So.
Did you say you were going to roll straight from 2 into 3?
Yeah, roll straight into doing 3 as well. I've got an editor standing by to go through it, to do an initial run, and then I'll go through it again after just to pick up on anything that I don't agree with what they've done. Sometimes I make edits that I don't agree with. And yeah, so. But I don't know if you've seen this, but I've redone this book, and it's got all the artwork in headings for the chapters.
Is that the first book?
Yeah, so I've started putting artwork in for the episodes. So that's what we got.
Is there a new artwork in there, or is it the existing stuff?
Oh no, it's the existing. It's just like the thumbnail or sort of more suitable artwork. Just one per chapter as a heading. But yeah. And then we've got the picture book coming out as well, but I need sketches from Mikey to carry on with that, but he's too busy at the moment, I suppose. I did ask him if he wanted to join that silhouette project, but he's he's too busy.
How are you getting on with the search for other artists?
Oh, I found 2 more, so we're good.
Sorry about that, boys.
No worries. Sorry, we were just chatting amongst ourselves with regards to stuff that's going on with the episode.
Oh, very nice. Very nice. Well, let's see. Anybody else? Stonehenge, welcome from the UK. It's 6 a.m. Yes, it is. Let's see here. Jules. We got about.
Dave, if you get the chance on the channel, as Rich mentioned, there are actually at least 2 episodes which are personal stories, which are things that we've experienced and put on there. And again, I think that's one of the things that draw people to the channel. They quite like the accessibility of it, sort of human face of it.
Right on. Right on. Do you want me to play them?
No. I'd be too embarrassed, I think.
Nothing's more embarrassing, man. Nothing's more embarrassing.
I hate hearing my own voice, so Yeah. I
All
don't know why
right.
people like.
You're the
Fine.
event.
Yeah, I know, and I don't know why people like my voice. To be honest, I just I hate it. It's just one of those things.
Well,
Oh, I hear you.
I've had the feedback.
We got about 1 minute, guys. 1 minute. Then we'll get going here. Excuse me. My dog came into work. Vaughn, how you doing? All right, gentlemen. Big question from Joe here for you. Who likes eating breakfast foods for dinner?
I used to be a shift worker, so I ate some very strange meals at very strange times of the day. So it doesn't bother me.
I'll
How
have
about
a
you, Rich?
full English. I've had a full English breakfast at sort of the evening meal as well. So yeah,
Oh.
eggs,
Mickey,
bacon, sausages.
give me some hope here. You don't eat breakfast foods for dinner, do you?
What?
You don't.
I kind of don't understand this question. Like breakfast food for dinner. What does it mean?
That's okay. We got to get going here. Thank you to Smithy, D. Cohen, Shelly, Cat Chaser, and Angel for the super chats. Thank you to all the veterans out there tuning us on in and hanging on out. You always got a safe place in our chat room. Here we go with the second hour of the show.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters here in beautiful British Columbia, Canada. And we say hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on TalkStream Live, Odyssey Radio, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Radio. Just do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Azimus. Azimus is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. We continue on tonight with the guys from Bedtime Stories. With us tonight, we have the creator, Rich, Simon, and Mikey, the artist. As well, we have a newcomer coming on in. Luke is from Wartime Stories. How you doing, Luke?
Doing well. Thank you, Dave. Thank you for having me. And good to see you guys.
Luke, you're not sounding very, very British here, man.
No, I'm an American. So that's sorry to disappoint.
Oh, that's okay. Well, we heard a rumor that you were going to hop on in with us to share some wartime stories with us. So now that you're here, let's give a quick introduction to you. What's Wartime Stories all about?
Wartime Stories is basically, it's kind of the same approach to the type of stories that Rich and Simon and Mikey here do at Bedtime Stories. I started the channel inspired by their channel, and it was only by the grace of Rich that he took me on as a partner channel when I kind of pitched this idea to him. I did 8 years in the U.S. Marine Corps, and so when I was looking to do a YouTube channel, I really liked the idea of doing bizarre stories from war. So kind of spreading the spectrum between, bizarre, like unusual acts of heroism, all the way to the more cryptids and alien encounters while in the military. And kind of I take a pretty loose approach. It doesn't always have to occur in an actual war setting. So there's some events that are taking place on U.S. military installations during peacetime. But yeah, just pretty much anything under the sun that could be considered unusual or out of the ordinary when it comes to military or war.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for your service. in serving for the U.S. Marines. Even from a Canadian here, we do appreciate it because we are brothers and sisters with a minor border separating us. But gentlemen, I got a question from Christine because I open up questions in our audience here during the second hour. And let's start off with you, Rich. You said you had a UFO story. Would love to hear what you saw.
Yeah, okay. So I actually related this story in a personal stories episode that we did about a year ago. When I was about 14 years old, I was cycling along a path, and this path runs all the way through my town. So it's probably about 4 or 5 miles long. And at certain points, it goes between sort of suburban areas and then more rural areas. And this one particular point, I was passing a rural area, which is next to a hotel. And this hotel's out in the middle of nowhere with kind of fields all around it. And as I'm riding up to this hotel, I see a group of people standing off to the side of the path. And I think there must be a football match on. Somebody's playing, football on the field, and these guys are just kind of spectating. But as I drew level with them and looked in the direction of where they were looking, there was this diamond-shaped thing in the sky, and it was kind of hollow in the middle. It was like a diamond-shaped outline, hollow in the middle, and it had this kind of squiggle between the top apex and the bottom apex, and it was just sitting in the sky, slowly kind of rotating like this. And I slammed the brakes on and went and stood over with these people. We were all looking at it, kind of amazed. And we were all kind of talking amongst ourselves, like trying to figure out what it was. And somebody said there was a blimp from the town centre. Like they were doing a show at the town centre, I think. And that's the kind of consensus we all agreed with, because we couldn't explain what it was. It just looked so bizarre. So we assumed it was an inflatable blimp. And then no sooner had we thought that and agreed upon that being the explanation, it just shut off. Didn't even see any kind of trail that it left behind. It was just 1 minute it was there, 1 second it was there rather, and next second it was just gone. You kind of just saw a blur of where it sort of shot off, and that dissipated within a split second. It was very, very weird.
How about you, Simon? Do you have a UFO story?
Not as sexy as Rich's, but certainly I did 18 years shift work, and driving home at night, there were several occasions where I was in fast-moving lights in the sky, which I struggle to rationalize.
Oh, so you try and be the skeptical guy.
I try and stay both sides of the line. I don't think I'd be happy with my scripts if I didn't, to be honest.
Like every good writer would say. That's a great answer, actually, by the way. Mikey, how about you? You ever had a UFO encounter?
Well, I wish I would have to tell you guys, but I don't.
Well, I guess we're not going to get anything out of you.
Yeah, I'm the quiet guy.
That's quite all right. That's quite all right. And how about for you, Luke?
I do actually. And it's funny because it's not an experience that I actually remembered until I did a UFO episode. And then I started to think, have I ever encountered anything like that? I can correct myself now because the first time I told the story was wrong on my channel, but I was on a flight. I was going from I was flying from Hawaii to Maine to do a training, 3-week training event in Maine, sometime in March. So I was flying basically, I think, from California straight to whatever the closest airport there was in New England near Maine. I can't one of the Navy ports, something like that. But anyway, somewhere over the Midwest. So it was already dark outside. We were somewhere over the Midwest. So I don't know, Kansas or Oklahoma, somewhere in that range. I wouldn't be able to know. I looked out, I was on a window seat and I looked out the window. I was behind the wing of the plane and I noticed what looked like headlights traveling along the ground. And, just almost like two distinct beams of light. And it looked like there was trees like passing over top of these lights. So I got the impression like this is a car driving on like a forested road, and there's, you know, it's giving this, you know, these tree branches are kind of breaking up the light. But then it struck me that, wait, I'm flying at like 35,000 feet. How could I possibly be seeing a car's headlights from this distance? And that they look much closer. So I started trying to say, you know, like, well, the tree branch thing was really weird because this was an area with not a lot of city lights. This was kind of a, you know, you could see maybe lights out in the distance, but this was a pretty dark area. So I thought, okay, is this another plane? Is this like a helicopter? But at 35,000 feet, we're traveling at cruising speed for a commercial plane. And I'm like, this thing is much lower than we are. I couldn't, maybe if I was to estimate it, maybe it was around the 10 to 15,000 foot level. Because when we start hitting clouds, it would interact with the clouds. Like the lights would either disappear behind clouds, or they would, you know, you could still see the light behind the clouds. So I'm trying to figure out what am I, you know, what, and it's traveling at the same speed. So I'm also thinking, okay, am I like seeing the reflection of the plane's lights down on the clouds, but then the clouds passing over them didn't make any sense. And I did a sanity check. There was actually a soldier sitting next to me. He was a senior soldier. He was a master sergeant. It just happened that we were on the same flight and he got the seat next to me, and we had talked for a little while. So I'd already I was able to bump him, and he was talking to his wife. And I said, Master Sergeant, I know this is going to sound weird, but can you lean over me and tell me that what I'm seeing is real? And he leans over me, you know, kind of like in my space, and he's looking down and he's like, well, what, that was like lights down there? And I was like, yeah, what is that? He's like, huh. Yeah, I see. That's weird. I don't know. I was like, they can't be headlights, right? And he's like, yeah, that doesn't make sense. So he eventually leaned back because he didn't want to be in my personal space for too long. But I didn't really think much of it after that. I stared at him for a while. And when we got to a city, they disappeared. They kind of seemed to, you know, like the city lights kind of drowned it out. And I just was like, okay, well, whatever it was, it's gone. But after we passed this major area, you know, all the city lights and everything, and we got back to an area that was pretty dark, I happened to look back out the window, and there were those lights again.
No way. You guys are being followed.
Couldn't make sense of it. So I just kind of put it out of the back of my mind, and I honestly forgot about it until maybe a couple of months ago. Because I would have told you I didn't really believe in UFOs, or I didn't really think I had any experiences. But then, yeah, some of the stuff I've had shared from my viewers and stuff like that is, I'm probably more like Simon, where I'm like, I try to be rational about things, and I try not to jump to like, oh, it's aliens kind of conclusion. But yeah, the recent events and everything, I'm starting to question even if what I've seen or what they've seen is something a little bit more complicated. So
you hang out around here long enough, you'll know it's always aliens when it comes down to it. You stub your toe in the middle of the night, aliens. No food in your fridge when you get that 2 a.m. hunger call, aliens. Always aliens. It works out easier that way.
Yeah.
When it comes to it, you know, obviously with the United Kingdom, there is a lot of good haunted stories, gentlemen. You know, I mean, you're a country that's been around for a couple thousand years almost, and for a long time, there's a lot of ancient and older buildings there that have been refurbished over the years to keep them still standing. What are some of your favorites haunted locations, Simon, that you've written about?
I mean, I mentioned earlier on, if you look at North America, whenever you go to a native tribe, they have stories. And I think with England, it's castles. Any castle you go to, there's usually tragedy associated with it, and there's usually a ghost associated with it as well. And it was Leap Castle that was probably our best one, the Irish one, where there were just stories of the fact that they found trapdoors leading down to spike pits where whole red wedding guests had been sort of thrown down there. But that was interesting because there was an entity attached to that one, which is quite rare, called the elemental, and people couldn't make their minds up whether it was a ghost or whether it was a demon or a cryptid. It used to crawl around the ceilings at night, and that was quite creepy.
Yeah.
No kidding. That would be creepy. How about for you, Rich? Do you have a favorite ghost story or location? I mean, one of the things that excites me is I have a buddy of mine named Merle who, for a year, he lived in the United Kingdom, and he worked in a couple of old bars as a bartender, and he said the bars over there are just insane for hauntings.
Yeah, I was going to say actually, there was a pub that I read about as a kid that was insanely haunted. Like people, when the people used to kind of do the shutting down, sometimes they'd be on their own. They'd be down in the cellar, and I feel for some reason I think the pub's name is the Queen's Head, and it was in Staffordshire somewhere. But yeah, the one guy, he heard singing behind him, like a choir almost, and he's in this cellar on his own, and it's a country pub, and he's doing the shutdown after work, and he just hightailed it out of there, kind of scared out of his wits, and he had a few experiences, to be honest. So yeah, but again, I'll go back to Cannock Chase for ghost stories as well. I think that's quite an interesting area, especially because it's not just ghosts; it's all kinds of things. It's all all kinds of weird phenomena, like a bit like Skinwalker Ranch.
Dolly here has a question for you, and she is asking, do you have any gargoyle cryptid sightings?
Yeah, there's one that we've recently written called the Ruskington Horror, which kind of resembles a gargoyle, the entity seen in that. But yeah, I think that's the only one really.
What happened there?
Will have to fly, because I mean, there's obviously the winged creatures on the Mexico border, isn't there? I don't know if they come in.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, apparently there's pterodactyls that still fly around Mexico and up here into their territory. It's like a giant triangle. It goes from like eastern Mexico and Texas up the coastline to British Columbia here in the summer, and then over to New Zealand and all those islands in there for the winter. And they're called the Ropin. And apparently their stomachs glow red, like a red ball. And apparently these things are vicious and they feed on people.
Wow.
Sad times.
No thanks.
Well, I know that's one of the stories that Merle and I are wanting to cover here coming up, because trying to find someone to talk about that, it's in a really remote location north of me, like by a couple 100 miles, and they don't really like talking about it.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
We'll have to put that one on the list. We'll have to put that one on the list, Simon, I think.
Will do.
Yes. All right, Luke, I'm going to ask you here. You write for your own channel called Wartime Stories. And for you, what kind of stories do you really appreciate, telling the military side of things?
It's a good question. And the way I'd probably answer that is saying, I think my audience is kind of divided. Because when I started I'm a little bit slower, right? Because I work alone. So when I started the channel, I started with the more traditional type of military stories before I jumped into ghosts and aliens and cryptids. So I think people got the impression that, oh, he's just going to do these types of more traditional stories. And then, and I even did, like Roy Benavides, who's an extraordinary act of heroism. And I did that story in my take on it. But I honestly did the channel because it was inspired by Bedtime Stories, because I can't really claim to have a lot of paranormal experiences myself, but they're fascinating to me. And there was a comment on my channel that I recently responded to, and I was able to kind of sort out my thoughts on this. And I think that as much as it comes off a little bit weird and a little bit unbelievable at times, whether people are seeing what they're actually seeing in physically, or it's a hallucination or the result of a dream in some cases, I think the paranormal aspect of the military and what people see, whether it's in Afghanistan in recent times or Vietnam or as far, Civil War, as far back as you could possibly go, with recorded history of these events, I think it really gives a look into the psychology and the psychological impact that war has on us. And it has on these men that are out there fighting. Because one of the most recent story I did is kind of touches on this. It's a guy who was fighting in Vietnam, and he encounters a ghost, and it's just and the ghost actually speaks to him, and it says something that's very relative to the situation, that it's creepy, and he says it in a different language. and the guy didn't understand it when he heard it. But then later, like maybe years later, he's talking to a teacher friend of his who knows Latin, and he recounts what he thought he heard, and she corrects him and tells him what it probably was. And it's really creepy that he would actually hear. So, my preference, to answer your question, is the paranormal side of it. I mean, I probably will do more of the heroic stories in future, but you could go to any channel and hear those stories, to be honest. And, I have my own style, but I really like the unusual side of what you could touch on in terms of war.
Well, tell us one of those unusual stories.
Let's see, one that with the exception of the ghosts that I already mentioned, trying to pick one. Well, because I maybe only started recently, Honduras, that's actually a good one. That's maybe a little more kind of centered. And speaking of prehistoric animals like pterodactyls, there's a gentleman who I started emailing back and forth with about a year ago, and he's had this kind of collective number of experiences, which in many cases lends to people not believing him. But I've noticed that there seems to be people who seem to have these sort of multiple experiences. The first real terrifying encounter that he had while he was in the Army was on his first deployment. He was stationed in North Carolina. He was a combat logistics guy. He did radios. He was a comms guy. And during the 1980s, when the whole there was a war between Nicaragua and in Nicaragua was a civil war going on, right, between the Sandinistas having taken over the government, and then there was the rebellion fighters fighting against him. Well, he was sent down to Honduras to help reconstruct an airfield. American forces were working with the Hondurans, and ultimately he ended up doing a lot of grunt work and doing like border patrol, these border patrol maneuvers to look for any Nicaraguan fighters that were crossing over into Honduras to have these kind of these shootouts with the rebellion fighters, the Sandinistas fighting with the rebels. And he got a call from a reconnaissance plane or helicopter of some kind had seen a boat, which it looked unusual, and they thought it could be one of the Nicaraguan boats, coming down the river. So pretty routine. He was told with his unit to go inspect it. His patrol unit was sent out down to the riverside. They parked their vehicles maybe about a mile away from the river, and they hoofed it down there. There was, I think, 6 or 7 of them total. And they were just going to do an observation and see what this boat was so they could send it back up a report. They weren't really there to engage with the enemy. They were really just there to do reconnaissance. Well, rather than a boat passing by, this large black object starts passing by them. It's moving upstream and it's under the water, whatever it is. But what he said, it was a giant black wedge shaped object, and they couldn't make sense of it. It looked like a floating debris, a log. They couldn't really tell. Well, the object positioned itself. It seemed to kind of maneuver itself towards the bank. And then the way he described it made sense. He suddenly realized what he was looking at was a giant eye. And it was an eye with a vertical slit in it. And he realized that this massive black thing that he's seeing in the water is the head of a snake. And when he realized how big it was, I mean, everybody kind of froze up when they saw what it was. Well, there was a bunch of cattle grazing near the water. Well, this 80-foot snake then proceeds to slide out of the water and attack the cattle while they're standing off in the bushes watching this whole thing. His team leader told them, do not open fire. Like, they're all probably freaked out and terrified at this point. Then they just watch as it basically, it was like a constrictor type snake, right? Like a giant anaconda, but this thing is way bigger, obviously, than anything they've ever seen. And it basically crushed one of the cattle with its head and then carried it back into the water. And he said the whole thing maybe took about 2 minutes. And they said that they did afterwards. They were obviously like, now that the danger was gone, they were a little bit curious, like guys would be, and they started arguing about how big it was. He said they paced it out from the edge of the water where its tail had been, estimated to where the head had been by the time it had fully left the water. He said it was about 75, 80 feet.
Holy cow. Gentlemen, I'm going to get you to hold on right there. We have one segment left with Simon, Rich, and Mikey from Bedtime Stories. And from their sister channel, Wartime Stories, we have Luke. And we're going to continue on with this great conversation about the strange and weird that is going around this world on a daily basis. Make sure you go on YouTube, hit subscribe to Wartime Stories and Bedtime Stories. And if you haven't hit the subscribe button on our channel, what are you waiting for? Spaced Out Radio continues right after this. All right, gents, we have a total of 5 minutes here. 5 minutes before we come back from break. This is great. I'm enjoying it.
Holy cow, indeed, by the way. Because it killed a cow.
Rich,
And it was...
I'm going to bow out. I have multiple children clawing at the door to get in for breakfast now. So I'm going to have to take my leave. Right.
All right. Good morning to you. And thank you, Simon.
Cheers.
No worries. You still there, guys.
See you, Simon.
See ya.
That's awesome. So, Daddy, make us breakfast. Let's do this thing. It's Saturday.
We've both got 5 children each, so
I've got
I suspect. Mikey's got 1, so all dads now. But I suspect mine will be coming down at some point soon. But normally they don't wake up before 7:30, so we should be okay.
Well, that's quite okay. You guys have been awesome so far. Awesome. Thank you so much for doing this, guys.
No worries. It's been a pleasure.
I hit subscribe on your channel, too, for Wartime Stories.
Thanks. I saw that. No, I've been watching it. I saw that one come in.
That's me.
Yeah.
That's me.
I spent all day just staring at that number. Come on. But,
Luke, when did you start your channel?
Technically 2 years ago, but I started it really without Rich's permission. To be quite honest, I just, there's no rules with this thing, but I started it inspired by his channel. I made my first 2 episodes. I started I had to figure out how to do everything. I didn't know how to do the animations. So I kind of used his channel as like a rubric, and I was like, well, how did he do this, and how does he put all this stuff together? That took me a few months, and then. So it technically started, around this time, 2020, but then it wasn't until maybe August that I had actually had 2 videos up. And then I had maybe 10, 13 subscribers, my friends and family. But I started I was still watching Bedtime Stories, and it was already nagging me that this looks way too similar to Bedtime Stories for me to be to think this is okay. So I thought, well, if I'm going to continue with this, I should at least let them know. I didn't probably ask. I just said, hey, thanks for the inspiration. And hopefully, I didn't think they were going to respond, but Rich wrote me back and he's like, well, yeah, you basically copied the channel. But
thanks for that. I appreciate that.
But you're not.
I believe it was. I'm going to be as diplomatic as
possible. I'm trying to paint you in a good light. Right? He was a little bit ticked, which I did. I don't know. I mean, if Rembrandt had somebody copy his work and say, "Hey, I hope you don't mind," because he spent years building this, and I'm glad I did because honestly, I was probably scared to do it when I did. But he emailed me back, and I read his email, and I was like, "Uh-oh." It was just my stomach, my stomach sunk, and I was like, oh boy. But he offered me the offer of a lifetime, and he said, well, you're not terrible at it, so what if I just took you on as a partner channel? So you would have to make all of your branding, your the type fonts and everything, your logo, your emblem would have to match Bedtime Stories, so you would basically be our sister channel, but then you could have the freedom to create whatever you wanted, so. And it gave me exposure to his subscribers, and I was like, I'd be an idiot to say no. So thank you for the opportunity, and here we are 2 years later, technically.
Mm-hmm.
Good for you. Good for you.
And you keep all the revenue as well.
Yeah, true. Yeah. Thanks. Yeah. Thanks. It's not yet a livable income, but I'm getting there faster than I expected. So, and then I have to thank you again, Rich, because I look at other channels. I don't know what YouTube takes for exposure. I'm obviously getting kind of these little spurts and stuff, but yeah, it does take a lot of time, I think. I think you said you had a few videos that you made that were just kind of the right timing, and that was kind of what blew up your channel. Yeah.
Yeah. Our big break came from Yuba City. I don't know if you're aware of this one, Dave. It's a story that's set in Yuba County in California, and it's about five guys who went missing. It's referred to as America's Dyatlov Pass incident. And we did a video on it, And at the time we did it, it was fairly unheard of. Not many people were aware of it. And then a bigger podcast sort of did an episode on it with, I think they had something like 500,000 subscribers. And the first thing they did after hearing their episode was come to YouTube and look for more information, and whose video pops up? Ours. And we kind of just steamrolled from there. We got 100,000 subscribers within a few months after that. So yeah.
Good for you. It only takes one. It only takes, and that's the reality of it. We got 20 seconds, guys. Thank you to Smithy, D. Cohen, Shelly, Cat Chaser, and Angel for the amazing super chats tonight. We very much appreciate the love. And if you're looking for any swag, go to our website, spacedoutradio.com. We got some great shirts there as well. Here we go, everyone. We passed the halfway point of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate earning your listening ears. Want to remind you that if you miss portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire. Check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. From the popular YouTube channel Bedtime Stories, we have Rich and Mikey here with us. And from their sister channel Wartime Stories, we have Luke, as we are talking true stories that people are experiencing around the world. And it's always fascinating, Rich, to find people who are willing to talk about what happened to them. Out of all the stories that you guys get on a daily basis from people, how many of them do you throw in the garbage because you're like, no, this is fake or it can't be real?
To be honest, we don't throw anything out. The only time if we pass on something, it's usually because there's not much substance to it, as in there's not enough really there to make an episode out of. But certainly one of the creepiest ones that we got was about shadow people in hospitals. And it was this, it was regarding this lady who'd gone in for a routine sort of, I think, keyhole surgery. So she wasn't, she wasn't too uncomfortable, and she wasn't on too many painkillers or whatever. But she was struggling with sleep, and I think she missed about 3 days worth of sleep in the end. And over time, she began to see these shadow people walking around the hospital ward that she was on and whispering in people's ears. And the people who, these recipients of these messages or whatever, they seemed completely unaware that some black shape was leaning over their shoulder and whispering in their ears. But yeah, I just found that really, really creepy for some reason. I've had experience with shadow people in the past myself, so yeah.
Oh, you can't say you had that experience and not share it with us.
Well, in the house where I used to live many years back, me and my girlfriend had lots of weird experiences in that house. There was sort of bumps and bangs and doors that used to slam and things that would fall off shelves, and it would always occur out of sight. You'd always hear the effect, and then you'd go to where you heard the sound and you'd find something had fallen off a shelf, which couldn't possibly have fallen off a shelf. But it started to manifest into other things. Like we woke up one night and there were footsteps walking around the bed, which was really, really freaky. Both of us heard it. Both sat up in bed and we heard these footsteps. And then one time when I was away working one of the weekends, actually, sorry, it wasn't the weekend. It was midweek. I was doing an event down in London. I used to work in marketing, and I went down to make sure all the branding was okay and everything like that. My girlfriend gave me a call at sort of 2:00 in the morning, saying that there was a shadow person. That she woke up and there was a shadow person standing right next to the bed. And the weird thing Yeah, the weird thing about it was short, about probably 4 foot tall, and she said the head was really big, like almost like a grey alien. And I've heard like theories about shadow people actually being alien in nature rather than ghostly. So yeah, that was kind of freaky as well.
Luke, I'm going to ask you regarding your channel, Wartime Stories. There's a story that I have been looking for a long time, and there's really hard. I've had a hard time trying to find information on it. Maybe you heard about it. It happened during the Vietnam War, where allegedly a B-52 bomber was shot down by a UFO. Have you ever heard that story?
No, actually. Now I'm curious.
Can I just say?
Yeah, Rich did an episode on UFOs.
We did.
Did you do that one?
Yeah, we did that. We covered that in Enemy Unknown. We've got an episode called Enemy Unknown, and we did the B-52 story.
Was that no? Okay, is that the one I read?
No, that would have been Enemy because we did two follow-ups.
Because I remember the one inside the plane with that mist that filled up the plane and everything. But I'm trying to think of.
Yeah, that was Enemy Unknown. You did the one you did was Enemy Unseen and Enemy.
Because I remember you did the one about the UFOs that were attacking the patrol boats in Vietnam.
Yeah, that was the same one.
Same episode. Okay, yeah, because you kind of composite those multiple experiences within one episode. Got it.
Yeah.
Yep. So he did it. So maybe you could ask Rich that question.
Well, what were you able to learn on that, Rich? Because I have been trying to find information on that, not to study or put out there, but it's just one of those stories that has absolutely intrigued me, and I've only ever seen it once.
Yeah, it was. I think it was mentioned briefly on a few websites, and then when we delved into it further, we found out the guy's name who originally reported it was somebody called William English, who was a captain, and he was sent into the jungle to. Sorry, I'm not. Telling you what you already know, I hope.
Oh no, go right ahead. Fill in the audience.
Okay. So he was deployed a certain distance away from the Laotian border to go in and try and find this B-52 based on the last radar contact that they had. And they found it probably 2 or 3 miles beyond the Laotian border, and it was sitting upright in the forest. The only thing that seemed to be damaged on it was the undercarriage. All the ports were still closed and locked, and they had to blast through to get access to it. And when they went in, they found the 5 or 6 crew members. I can't remember exactly, but they were all completely mutilated, as if they'd been hit by an energy weapon almost, and their bodies had just burst, kind of thing. It didn't. They said it didn't resemble the kind of damage you'd see from a impact, and not only that, there wasn't enough damage to the plane itself to suggest that it had crash landed in the forest. It was almost like it had been levitated and just dropped, and it had damaged the undercarriage as it had done so. But yeah,
wow, that story just fascinates me. Absolutely fascinates me. All right, let's get to a couple questions here from our audience. Kira would like to know, have any of you guys done stories on portals and found out where they're located?
We've kind of touched on portals with the Skinwalker Ranch stuff. I don't know if you're aware, but when they were studying Skinwalker Ranch, when the NIDS team was studying, going in and trying to find out what was going on there in the 90s, they got a number of remote viewers to view the location, which is something I want to come back to actually, because it's an episode we're going to do going forward, which is really interesting. I want to talk about. But yeah, these remote viewers basically saw portals in their viewings of the location, particularly in the southwest of the property. They said there's something evil and very just otherworldly there. And another incident involving portals was one of these disappearances in the woods, where I think it was a ranger who was walking through doing a patrol. He walked around a corner and his foot just disappeared, and he was kind of looked down, very strange, and then he retracted his foot and it reappeared again. and it was almost like he was almost stepped through into a portal kind of thing. So that's one of the stories we're going to feature in this, these near misses of people going missing in the woods.
Right on. Let's get to another question here from Cindy, who is asking, what specific topic do you receive the most stories on?
I would say ghosts and hauntings.
Personally, I've been getting a lot more. I think it's inspired a lot by the stories that are posted. So for me, I kind of delved into a lot of UFO territory within the last several episodes, and so I've been getting a lot of UFOs. But with the most recent ghost episode, I've also been getting now more ghost stories coming in. So UFOs probably for me, at least in the last few months.
I'm curious, Rich, for you, I mean, considering you're searching and scouring for any time of old war stories that are out there, do you notice a lot more UFOs compared to monsters and ghosts from the battlefield?
You mean me or Rich?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Luke, you.
Yeah, no worries. And I should say that just because mine's wartime story, Rich still does war stories. That we kind of work independently. I'm just the Marine Corps guy that said, hey, I want to do war stories and specialize in that. But to answer your question, so far, yeah, I've had far more, whether Navy, Army, Marine Corps, Air Force, that have shared UFO sightings than they have anything else. Certainly, monsters are few and far between, at least so far. I mean, but collectively, yeah, UFOs are so common that it's like for being someone that said he didn't really think UFOs were real, I'm like, okay, well now I'm like, I can't help but to acknowledge, and especially with recent news and everything and the government coming out and media acknowledging it, it's kind of undeniable at this point that they're real. But the question is now, what are they? So I've started to explore that a little bit in my episodes.
What kind of craft are soldiers or pilots or Navy seamen seeing?
I did 2 episodes where there was a soldier that was stationed on Fort Campbell in Kentucky in the 1980s. And there was the first instance he saw a diamond-shaped craft. He said it was cube-shaped, but I took his meaning to mean diamond-shaped because he said it did have a center, right, that had lights around it. And in effect, it was identical in most regards to the Cash Landrum incident. So he saw it once from his parking lot outside of his barracks as he was taking his laundry, and he'd been out to the laundromat, and he parked his car, and as he was walking in, he saw this cube-shaped, diamond-shaped UFO floating around the back 40, the back area of the base, with helicopters, Chinook helicopters, similar to the Cash Landrum incident that were on site. They looked like they were pursuing it. And then he later again saw it up close because he ended up being assigned to the military police. And he saw it sitting over top of a radio tower, and he was within probably several hundred meters of it. So like kind of these, what's the word, geometrically shaped. I've gotten stories about geometrically shaped UFOs, whether triangular or triangular, seem like 3 lights in a 3 lights in a formation like that, a perfect triangle formation, or in daylight seeing these sort of either spherical, like egg shaped, or geometrically, I think maybe I had one hexagon shape, but I don't think it was a soldier that sent it. And then mostly just lights, mostly like orbs of light. I'm sort of bouncing between, well, a lot of these things take place at night. So are these lights attached to a craft, or are they these independent floating orbs of light? And very distinct from military flares. I've gotten some flare stories, and they're obviously military flares, but then there's these other kinds of orbs of light that don't seem to make sense, being anything man-made. So
good friend of mine, Eric from Washington State, he served as a medic during the first Gulf War in 91. And he was telling me stories about how at night they'd watch the black triangles come in, and they didn't know whether it was ours or theirs or from somewhere else. He goes, but they were massive, and they were sitting right over top of the bases and everything. And when he pointed it out to senior officers, he was told to just shut up about it and don't worry about it.
That's pretty standard.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Being a former military, being a former military guy now, I'm curious, what is your take on all this UFO hubbub coming out of Washington, D.C.?
Well, it's either we're getting to the point where it's undeniable. I mean, there's obviously the conspiracy that they're trying to draw our attention away from the government, right? Like, just stop looking at us. Like, here, look, some UFOs. Like, look, like anything. It's kind of getting to the point where it's hard to deny it. Why they would come out and acknowledge it. I should say stay tuned. Because I had a guy, not military, a guy who lives in Georgia, email me a story from his experience with UFOs. It's taken into context. If everything is to be taken seriously, it's absolutely terrifying. And he has a theory. And so I can't claim to own this theory, but his theory is that they are preparing us for something that is about to happen, which a visitation. They are, because it would obviously be outright panic if there was this large scale, visitation of these alien crafts. But the government is, in essence, getting people ready, their mindset ready, so it won't be such a shock.
Yes.
Yeah.
You would be, from my sources, you would be very on to something there.
Yeah.
Very on to something.
I was going to say, I've also heard that, it could be just a psyop, and that they'll use holograms and things to kind of stage some sort of, this is a conspiracy theory, by the way, to stage some sort of alien invasion, which I find kind of comical, but also, again, being the open-minded kind of guy I am, I take everything with a pinch of salt kind of thing. But I was just going to interject when Luke was talking about the triangles in Iraq, or wherever it was, Afghanistan, was it? Or,
yeah, definitely. Anyway. There's been UFO sightings in Afghanistan, Iraq, both of them.
Yeah, they always seem to be sort of drawn to warfare and combat scenarios. They kind of seem to pop up more prominently in those situations.
And it's weird how they seem to like the entertainment of us killing ourselves. Mr. Eon, who literally has a voice of the gods and is from the UK, he's asking if you are entertaining any guest storytellers.
We've done so in the past. I mean, Luke's come on and done a couple of episodes for Bedtime Stories, and we've had the guy from Top Fives, which is a big YouTube channel. I think they've got 3.5 million subscribers or something like that. So we'd be open to the idea.
I think typically, if my experience is correct, Rich, it's usually, I mean, with me being the exception, right? Because mine was a war story, and you were helping me out. You were like, hey, we did a war story, but Luke's doing war stories now. But in past, it's usually been their story, right? Like the guy from Kentucky asked to narrate his own story. I know you've had maybe at least one or two other episodes with a different narrator, but I don't know the backstory on those.
Yeah, there was, as far as I'm aware, I think the only other one we did was the Top Fives guy.
Okay.
So yeah.
Glenn would like to know, Rich, are you planning any more channels?
Well, we've got a number of. Simon's got his own channel called Unexplained Encounter, which is. Is it Unclassified Encounter? Sorry,
Unclassified Encounter.
Unclassified Encounter, which that's all fictional stories based around World War II, and it's really good stuff, to be honest. But that's his kind of side project that he does by himself. But as far as we're concerned, me, Luke, and Simon are actually looking at doing a sci-fi channel. So nothing to do with Bedtime Stories, really. It's a graphic novel, which we're going to convert into a YouTube series. It's going to have the whole voice cast, the whole score, and sound effects and everything as we pan from one cell within the graphic novel to another, trying to tell a story, kind of thing. But it's not really anything to do with what we're talking about now.
Well, that's great, guys. That's great. We got 5.5 minutes to go here. Rich, I'm going to put the ball back in your court here for a second, because out of the hundreds, if not thousands, of stories you guys have accomplished over the years, is there one that really sticks out to you, whether it's scary, whether it just felt a little too close to home, that you would share with us?
I've always been fascinated by the Flannan Isles mystery, and I know that might be a disappointment because it's just a disappearance on an island, but it's the fact that the island was so isolated. They were on cliffs that were 200 to 300 feet above the water, and yet they vanished into thin air around 1900. This was also the Dyatlov Pass incident has always kind of held a kind of I've always had an affinity for. I just really find that one interesting.
How about for you, Luke? Is there a story that you've done that's really stuck with you?
Yeah. Honestly, I would have to say the more recent episodes that I've done, because it was much more personal. Because the gentleman whose stories they was somebody that I was actually talking to, and it wasn't just something I found on the internet and did a little research and kind of put a story together. And honestly, I would pick out one of his stories, but it is the collection. It's like his collective experience, because he had 4 different, call them experiences, two UFO encounters that were essentially the same UFO seen twice within the space of about 8 months, and then the giant snake in Honduras. And then there was a helicopter crash that he came upon while he was on duty on Fort Campbell during the night patrol, and basically this elite, blacked out, unit of soldiers showed up and treated the crash site like it was something a lot more secret than it should have been. Like I had a buddy that died in a crash on Fort Campbell, and that story kind of it related to me. But yeah, his collection of those 4 stories, and going from his first one in Honduras and then being moved to Fort Campbell because he basically was told to shut up and stay quiet after Honduras, and because he did, they think he gave him his duty station, because he grew up in Tennessee, at Fort Campbell, to kind of say, hey, thanks for shutting up, and so we'll station in your family for the last part of your enlistment. But then he had these other 3 strange experiences on Fort Campbell. I'm sorry, he saw Bigfoot on Fort Campbell. That was the other one. So UFO, Bigfoot, giant snake, and crashed helicopter. And he's a guy that's just comes off as somebody who's been told to shut up his entire life, and that stuck with me, because he's somebody that actually made me start to question my own doubts in these things even being real.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And how about for you, Mikey? You've done enough drawing now. Is there a scene or a story that really sticks out to you as an artist for the Bedtime Stories Network?
Well, yeah, there are a lot of images I've done that I really enjoyed, like the Michigan Dogman, that what refers to creatures, but also a lot of like atmosphere stuff that I've done, like different scenes that capture this atmosphere, weather conditions, and this this creepy feeling. I also like images that I must create the concept of the creature. Like there are episodes that are based on some let's say some real images, but some things I must create from my own, like from imagination.
Oh, very.
So
very.
I like really concepting the creatures.
I don't blame you, gentlemen. We have about 1 minute left, and Rich, Mikey, and Luke, I know we didn't have you for a long time, but it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on here and get to know you guys. If you don't mind, Rich, let us know where we can find your channel and how we can get a hold of you.
Yeah, okay, so the channel's on YouTube. I think the link is Creepy Bedtime Stories, so youtube.com /Creepy Bedtime Stories. And then obviously we're on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. So, I mean, if you're searching for us, you'll find us. Yeah, we should pop up in the search.
And Luke, 30 seconds for you.
Same for me, youtube.com /wartime stories. And you're probably going to reach me quicker by email, because I check my emails every day. I'm bad at social media. wartimestories.yt@gmail.com. And my contact information is linked all over my videos and my page. So
wonderful. Gentlemen, it's been a pleasure having you on Spaced Out Radio. for the first time, hopefully not the last, because I love talking these kinds of stories, guys. And I know it's early over in the UK, but thank you so much for coming on the show tonight. Coming up next, we're going to head to the swamp, another spooky story from the resident swamp dweller. Then Fedora John comes in for the unbiased UFO report. Shirky Poo's got the news. Hour 3 of Spaced Out Radio coming up right after this. Great show, gentlemen. Great
Thank you very
show.
much for having us.
That was a lot of fun, man. A lot of fun.
Yeah, really enjoyed it.
Thanks,
Great.
Dave.
Yeah,
No problem.
I was the most important in this.
Well, I really appreciate it, and like I said, I love listening to stories like this, and I encourage all of our audience to go support you guys as well. So, you know what? Thank you so much for taking the time with us.
No problem, and we'll be happy to do it again should you invite us on. So
Absolutely, absolutely. Go enjoy breakfast, guys. Not you, Luke.
thank you.
No, I'm going to go. Yeah, have a beer and go to bed.
All right, boys. Take care, everyone.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye. All right.
Bye.
I like those guys. Bye, Mike. All right. I like those guys. They're a lot of fun. A lot of fun. I'll be right back, ladies and gentlemen. Hour 3 coming up next. Hi, Chris Mo. How you doing? All right. We got about a minute here. Hi, Super Duke from World Bigfoot Radio. Super Duke. It's almost swamped out radio time. Excuse me. Who's ready for a little swamped out radio? I have no idea what this is, Swampy, but if you want to do a show on Spaced Out Radio, I will provide the microphone. How about that? I'll put the offer out there publicly. I am not interviewing Ronald Moorhead. The cryptid huntress Jessica Jones is, so we're going to have a good time with her.
For all your latest show info. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America and digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Azimus. Azimus is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot, reading Shirky Poo's Newswire. Check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. It is time once again where we head to the swamp. Our resident swamp dweller takes us on a journey of another spooky story.
Hi, Spaced Out Radio listeners. This is Swamp Dweller. It's time for your nightly dose of spookiness on the show. If you have an interesting encounter or a spooky story that you would like to share, be sure to submit them in at swampdweller.net. You can also find our YouTube channel at youtube.com/swampdwellerreads. Now, let's chill out, relax, and together, let's enter the swamp. This is a short story, but 100% true. Roughly about 7 or 8 years ago, I was in a relationship. Let's call him James. James lived in a big house which he shared with his brother's wife, and their kids. James had his own section of the house with a bedroom, bathroom, hallway, and set of stairs to go downstairs into the main part of the house and access to the garage. I would mostly sleep over on weekends as we lived about 45 minutes apart and I worked in the city. Before I begin with the story in detail, let me give you a layout of the bedroom. The bed's headboard was against a wall with a window to the right and glass sliding doors to the right as well, which opened into the upstairs porch. A big screen TV was in front of the bed. To the left of the TV was a small hallway which led to a set of stairs that go downstairs. To the left of the bed, about 7 feet, was a glass table and entertainment center which had a stereo system on top of it, which is key to the story. We always slept in the dark, but the TV and cable did illuminate a little bit of the room, because the lights and buttons all had LEDs. One night, which was just a regular night, nothing odd or out of the normal, James and I went to sleep. Keep in mind we were not drunk or high or under the influences of any other drug, and nor did we do any of those. I remember suddenly waking up feeling very uncomfortable. As I laid there on my back, staring at the ceiling, trying to figure out what was going on, I couldn't help but notice the feeling of intense dread and doom. It felt like something was bearing into my soul. I looked over to my left and James was fast asleep. As I was turning my head to the ceiling, my eyes caught a glimpse of something in the left corner of the wall by the entertainment system. As I looked over, I could see a big black mass, and I immediately leapt out of my bed, yelling, "No, no, no." That immediately woke James up, and immediately after that, the entire power of the house goes off, and the smoke alarms start blaring. As the smoke alarms are emanating this loud, shrieking noise, I ran over to the hallway and was hysterically crying from pure fear. As I explained to James what I saw and what was happening to the best of my ability, as James was consoling me, he looked white in the face. After what seemed like an eternity, the smoke alarms finally stopped blaring and the power turned back on. As the TV and cable system lit up again, but that was the only light except for the moon. As we walked back to the bed and lay down, I still didn't feel right. I turned to look, and that black mass was still there. I sat up and faced my back to that wall, and James started to pray for whatever was in the room to go away. Eventually, from pure exhaustion, we fell asleep. The next morning, we were trying to figure out what had happened, and James told me something that literally sends a chill down to my spine every time I talk about it. James said he didn't want to tell me this last night, but when the power went off, James looked at the entertainment center, and the stereo system was turned on with the words that said, "Hello," written across the screen. To this day, I can't figure out what the hell that thing was. Hello, Swamp Dweller. I hope you are well. I really enjoy listening to your channel and listening to the many different stories you narrate on it, which is why I've decided to share mine. Although I don't know where to start, as it has been quite a long time since this happened. I was 9 years old when it went down. To give you a little background on me, I am a female, currently 31 years old. I grew up in the Middle East, to be more specific, in Oman, which is where my stories take place. I am the second oldest of 4. My father's house is a 3-story villa in a large city that I will not name for privacy reasons. The ground floor of the villa is split into 2 even apartments. Both sides have 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms. The second floor is where I and my family grew up, and the 3rd floor is the maid's quarters, and then the rooftop. I remember growing up with my older sister, who suffered from very bad night terrors. She'd wake up the whole house with her screaming. This happened quite often. I'd say at least 2 to 3 times a week. I honestly think for her well-being, my parents sent her to Florida to live with my grandmother when she turned 13 years old. After my older sister was gone, I believe whatever it was tormenting her at night started tormenting me. You see, my father's house becomes very alive at night. We would hear pots and pans clinking, and kitchen cabinets creaking open and slamming shut, footsteps running in the corridors of the house. But when we go and check to see who it is, there is no one there, and everyone is sound asleep throughout the house. As I have mentioned earlier, my sister is gone now. I have recently started hearing whispers. I couldn't make up what the whispers were, as I tried my best to ignore them. However, I believe me ignoring whatever it was made it worse. I remember waking up in the middle of the night feeling like I was being watched. This kept on happening for quite a while. It was happening to not just me, but my siblings. They were also expressing fears. We all went to our parents and told them about these fears, and they decided that they will resolve the issue by buying night lights for each bedroom. That way none of us were sleeping in complete darkness. The night light sure made it a lot easier to fall asleep, and it was okay for a while. Skipping forward to my early teen years, I remember waking up at 3 a.m. because I really needed to go pee. I remember this night very well because it was very engraved in my mind. I woke up looking at the nightstand and the clock read 3 a.m. on the dot. I recall stumbling my way to the bedroom door to open it, and I heard what sounded like running footsteps headed toward the bathroom. Thinking to myself, My sister must be up too and running toward the bathroom. So I opened my bedroom door so quietly and looked to my right, which is where my younger sister's room is. Her door was shut. I thought that was odd. If she was running to the bathroom, her door should be open. I opened her door and saw that she was sound asleep, so I closed it and proceeded to head to the bathroom, which is about 30 steps to the left of my bedroom door. Halfway down the corridor, I stopped dead in my tracks because I started hearing the clinking of pots and pans, kitchen cabinets opening and closing, and that made me call out for my youngest sibling, my brother. As soon as I said his name, everything stopped and I heard the bathroom door creak open. And I kid you not, 3 dark figures with red glowing eyes floated out of the bathroom toward me. These figures were like No Face from Spirited Away, but without the mask, and 2 of them were so tall. They had to crouch down, creating an upside-down L shape as they tried to fit between the space of the floor and the ceiling. I froze in fear as they floated past me. As I was not even there, it's almost like they didn't even notice me. I was so scared to make a sound that I thought maybe they just didn't see me. I don't know. I waited for what felt like forever before I turned around to see that they were gone. I didn't go to the bathroom. Instead, I ran back to my bedroom and held the urge to pee until I heard my maid come in and get things ready for breakfast. This is what set things in motion, because from that night or morning on, I kept waking up at 3 a.m. on the dot, always seeing a cloud-like shadow with red glowing beady eyes bouncing at the foot of my bed. I would have nightmares that I am falling into an endless black abyss and jolt out of my sleep, and of course it's always 3 a.m., and that little thing will be bouncing at the foot of my bed. Sometimes it's the small figure, other times it's the big one. They're always glaring at me though from the darkest corner of my bedroom. This kept on for what felt like forever, until things progressed a bit, and now my bedroom became a playground for these entities. I started to suffer from severe depression, and I would hear whispers telling me to end my life. Things got worse after my parents separated and my mom moved to the United States. My depression got worse, and the reoccurring dream of me falling into a black abyss started to become more and more realistic. I've started to do badly at school since I've started to stay awake all night. These entities started to get into my head, and I've tried to end my life a couple of times, but thanks to my maid, I am still here. There have been so many incidents at my father's house that I'll send to you. I just thought these entities take the cake as they have changed my life forever. I ended up leaving my dad's house and moving to the United States at the age of 15. I have had the falling down the dark abyss nightmares for a while after the big move. I sleep with some sort of nightlight on all the time, and some sort of background noise is always playing these days. Usually it's your show, playing on my YouTube app on my boyfriend's TV. I have a hard time falling asleep and still suffer from severe depression and anxiety. However, I do think it's a combination of the things that went bump in the night and life in general. Now I live in Florida. I no longer see these figures, but I think my experience made me much more aware of the paranormal.
Wonderful story from our main man, Swamp Dweller, in the spooky story category. Of course, Swamp Dweller joins us every Monday through Friday night with a spooky tale, and we absolutely love him around here. Make sure you head on over to his channel on YouTube, youtube.com/Swamp Dweller Reads, and you can hear one of the many thousands of stories he has from reports just like you're having at home. All right, let us get to John Hudson, the fedora-wearing wonder, and the unbiased UFO report.
Nobody's gonna know.
They're gonna know.
All right, the fedora-wearing wonder. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good, Dave. How about you, man?
I'm doing good. I had a good day today, man.
I'm
I had a
good.
really
Glad to hear it. Seems like you're in a good mood, having a good time. So,
well, today was one of the first days in a while I actually didn't fall asleep at my desk in my daytime job. So I was pretty happy with that.
I bet your boss is pretty happy too.
Yeah, probably. Probably, considering the last time I fell asleep, he was the one who woke me up.
But you will find that the happier that you are, the more happiness happens around you. It's really quite astounding. I've even experimented with this in that during some of these downturns, you'd have all these like really desperate people calling you for all these different reasons, and I would occasionally just, if I had time, stop and try to strike up a conversation with them. And just really listen to them, be kind. And you would not believe some of the friends I made. I made these two friends over in Jamaica. They were so nice to me after that. It was crazy. And all I did was just like, I swear to you, all I was kind and listened. That was it. That's all I did. It was so crazy. It's really funny how much positivity you can get out of a little positivity.
I agree with you there, my friend. I agree with you there. Hey, everybody seems to be getting a little warmed up and ready for Tuesday. It's Christmas in May for the UFO crowd, at least for some of us. And I'll tell you, there's a lot of people talking. There's a lot of stories brewing, a lot of rumors and conjecture out there. Will Lou Elizondo be in those hearings? Will he not? Will he be behind the scenes? Or will he be at home drinking a glass of wine, watching the proceedings from Wyoming?
Yeah. I guess my one question is, Dave, is that we could talk about this for hours. So are you sure you want to hit this first?
Well, no, we'll hit it second after the break, because I know that we're going to take some time on that. Let's start off with Coastal Rica. What's this one about?
Well, basically, oh no, that's a lovely label. No, what this is Costa Rica. This is another one of these really interesting cases because, like I said, I really don't know how to weigh historical data fairly. This is a picture. This is a high quality, high resolution picture, but it is from 1971. So a little bit about the picture first. So September 4th, 1971. Aboard a 2-engine Aero Commander F-680 aeroplane, an automated camera captured an image of a flying saucer, which today has yet to be debunked. And it goes on to talk about the altitude, and we have all this information on it, and it is a beautiful picture. I will agree. However, to me, very much like another picture that I showed just recently, I guess from the point of view of spending energy where you're going to get payout for it, right? I just wonder what is the value in really putting a lot of energy into some of these old photos. Like, I would love to think that there was. I would love to think that we could go back and reprocess some old photo and suddenly move the needle in some way. But that's not ever what I've seen. I mean, look what's happened with Patterson Gimlin. The new freaking 4K 100 frames per second video is insane, and no one cares. So I just don't know how valuable this is, but it sucks because it's very interesting and it's a really, really good picture. And the fact that it's sit here since 71 without anyone having any real serious swipes at it, doesn't mean it's definitely anything, but it certainly leans a lot of credibility to the fact that it's not something known.
Well, I want to ask you, with this photo, because we do have a lot of people in Radioland who'll be like, what's this photo John talking about? Describe this photo for us, if you don't mind.
So this is an overhead photo, and this looks very, very much like the photo I talked about before. So if it's a repeat, I apologize. But basically, I mean, it's basically an overhead photo of a coastline, and there is basically a flying disc in one frame of it, and it's an incredibly spooky looking flying disc because it's really, really, really normal looking. Like, it almost looks like if you were to go into your kitchen and say, "Hey, I need to make a UFO," and someone said, "Okay, here," and handed you a pan and you threw it and they snapped the picture. Like, that's what you'd expect this to be. It's almost cliche in how it looks, right? It's almost a caricature of itself in a way, because it is such the stereotypical, and very much like some other pictures that I've talked about recently. There's lots of interesting debate about camera angles and so forth. But we have a lot of information on this picture, the altitude, the fact that, you know, the shots were taken for 20 seconds. You know, we actually have a lot of data on this film. And the thing is that once again, while I find this very interesting, I think I can totally geek out over this. I don't really know if anyone else cares. You know what I mean? I like fundamentally, like, I don't know, like, if this is something that, like, would I don't think this is going to change anyone's mind.
No, I don't see it changing anybody's mind. To be honest with you, to me, it looks photoshopped that it's in there.
Yeah.
But of
Yeah, it's
course,
weird.
we're looking at this, John, with 21st century eyes and 1971 eyes.
Yep. Totally agreed. Totally agreed. And the thing is that honestly, there are even hypotheses that support the idea that UFOs in the past might have looked corny intentionally. Okay, as crazy as that might sound to some people, but look at it this way: if you subscribe to the hypothesis that there is some core fundamental field or energy source of somewhat that is basically projecting all of these different types of objects, whether it be a UFO or whatever, then essentially what they're projecting is what they think we're expecting to see. So as a result of that, UFOs of the past should look kind of hokey to us, right? In a weird way. I mean, it's bizarre, but if you think about that hypothesis, it actually lends credence to the idea that, you know, older UFOs would actually look older.
Or, you know what I find a little bit intriguing about that is how we've gone in stages with UFOs, from flying discs to what we're seeing now, which are cube shape, pyramid shape, triangles. You
Well,
don't hear a
Dave,
lot of the TikToks, Tic Tacs.
I know, no Doritos, no anything.
I know.
But the thing is that this, you're not at the beginning, right? In that, you know, you go back and you know, and if any of you haven't read this yet, you should feel very bad about yourselves. John Keel's books, right? He tells you the stories in the 1800s, airships, right? There's a case of something flying over London that not only looked like a flying ship, like something out of freaking Peter Pan, but the anchor, quote unquote, that was hanging from the ship, you know, because a ship has to have an anchor, even if it's a flying ship, caught on someone's chimney and damaged the chimney.
Right.
Blah, blah. What is that?
And
Right?
for
Like,
centuries, people were seeing, John, those like ships that had oars. Some of them even had reports of oars sticking out of the side that were moving as it was flying.
I can almost promise you that there were Vikings that saw rowing, you know. I mean, and the thing that's so frustrating about this is that if you've been studying this, if you've been taking as desperate of a scientific approach to studying this as you possibly can, you start getting to some very difficult hypotheses. But the problem is that none of it means that anything isn't real, and none of it means that anything is real. And that's what's so frustrating about it, is that everyone wants this definitive answer. But the truth of the matter is that, you know, if, like, let's say, for example, that all just UFOs are projected from an orb, right? Now they're projected from something. Now, are they projected from us? Well, where did we see it from? So my point is that are all projections a clone of an original, or
Well,
are any projections original themselves?
Well, John, we're going to continue on with the unbiased UFO report. Thank you for your analysis on that. And we'll talk to you right after the break here, as we'll get into the hearings. People are getting geared up for UFO talk next week. All right, buddy, we're clear.
Good.
That was a good start, man. Solid start.
It's trippy.
You're trippy.
You know, one thing that I thought might happen, but I wasn't confident enough to predict, is that right before like grand focal points happen, where people think that there's going to be grand decisions made, there'll be certain groups right before it that will get so nervous and so anxious that they can't handle it anymore. And they'll make a decision because they want to preempt the event. They want to be the ones that said right before the event, we knew what we were doing, we knew the answers. And historically, this strategy almost never pays out. I mean, almost never. The one exception is if you're Microsoft, and then you can do it afterwards, and you throw so much money at it, it doesn't matter. So, 1 second. What's up? What's up? What do you? Oh, no, okay. Yeah. You need something? What do you need? What do you need? Me? I don't understand. What do you need? I know I'm on the radio right now. I'm trying to find out what you need. Oh, you want me to pause it? I'm sorry. I apologize. Here, hold on a second. It's like trying to figure out why she wasn't talking. I'm like, what's wrong with you? Where'd your voice go?
She's so cute.
Didn't want to speak until I muted it.
My son's like that too. That's
Cracks
awesome.
me up.
Can she hear me?
No, I got a headphone in.
Oh.
No, I didn't make it to Legoland. It was someone else was going to Legoland.
Grant Tavius.
Yeah, Grant
is in
Tavius was.
Legoland.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I haven't been yet myself.
I've never been there either.
I have to admit, I'm a little afraid to go.
Why? Addiction?
I'm a little afraid I won't leave.
Yeah. I think we're all like that.
I used to spend like I would literally like 3 o'clock getting home until midnight, and then the next day do the same thing on like one Lego project for like days on days and days on end. I even had a whole QA process for ships. They had to be able to sustain falls from certain heights over certain materials with certain hardnesses.
Really?
Mm-hmm. What's good is a Lego ship if it falls apart, right?
True.
So over grass, it has to be able to land over certain heights and over. You got to be reasonable.
Did you ever glue yours?
Oh God, no! It's criminal.
I know people who did that.
Look, I'm going to say something that's very judgmental. It's not fair, but I'm going to say this: people that glue their Legos are afraid of their own imaginations.
Very true.
And it's the last thing in the world you should be afraid of. If anything is there for you, it's your imagination.
Well, you ready to drop the gloves here on this portion?
Yeah, but you didn't want to talk about basically everyone calling their bets, like on this whole like Stephen Greenstreet thing. I mean, basically you have a bunch of people calling their bets 5 days early, hoping to cash in, and it's kind of entertaining, don't you think?
Well, let's get to it. It's all part and parcel.
That's true. It is. You're right on that one.
Big thank you to Smithy, D. Cohen, Shelly, Cat Chaser, and Angel for the amazing super chats tonight. Very much appreciate your love and support of SOR. And we're going to get going here in 10 seconds. Rounded third. We're headed for home on Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate it. Want to remind you that if you missed most of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor. Hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot, reading Shirky Poo's Newswire. Check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. We continue on with the unbiased UFO report. The fedora-wearing John Hudson is here with us. And John, we are just hours away from the UFO report coming on in, and there's a lot of speculation through the weekend and previous week that what we're going to get through all of this. What do you think's going to go on? And what's the atmosphere like in UFO Twitter land?
Well, what's kind of surprising is the number of stories that are actually breaking. Like, I was kind of expecting the normal situation where there's an absolute vacuum of information for the 72 to whatever hours beforehand, and in that period of time people panic and start making stuff up out of nowhere and convincing people of it. It's weird. What happened this time, which is different, is that you've seen a bunch of stories breaking. And so for example, one of them is that essentially Christopher Mellon, who most of you are aware of, and if not, he served with distinction in the U.S. government and was part of TTSA, and he basically wrote this fantastic article where he basically lays out exactly what sort of questions that he wants asked at the hearing. And he listed as a draft, and he encourages input, and there's nothing in it that jumps out as me as well. That's not true. I was a little surprised at his aggression toward the U.S. Air Force. Some of the language toward the U.S. Air Force was a bit more terse than I would expect. But if Christopher Mellon is talking like that, it means he's really, really mad, because that guy is in massive control of his emotions. It's fantastic. But the thing is that, like we were talking about before, these become trigger points for all these sort of events. So we have supportive things coming out like that. We also have a lot of people just writing about the briefings that wouldn't necessarily be writing about the topic. Like, for example, Bloomberg. Like, I wouldn't normally expect Bloomberg to be running an article about UFOs, but they are running an article about UFOs in the political section, talking about the fact that the chair of the first UFO hearing since 1960 was quoted as saying, "Someone has to do it."
Someone
has to do it. Gotta love that motivation, right?
I think Chris Mellon's article couldn't have come out at a better time. I really do like the idea that he is out there and he continues to push. For so many months, it seems like Mellon went into the dark and everything was on Luis Elizondo's shoulders. So it's nice to see Mellon kind of, getting ready for the game, throwing a few body checks and starting to stir it up a little bit before the big event.
Yeah. And the thing is that, and that's the other problem, is that you're going to have a certain number of look. The problem is that one of the things you have to do is try to separate the organic actions from the um, um, structured actions, right? Meaning that is someone taking advantage of a process and trying to exaggerate something, or are they actually trying to get something to happen completely artificially, versus a more organic thing. Like, for example, Bloomberg writing about the fact that there is going to be hearings in their political section, that caught me a little bit off guard. But when you think about it, kind of makes sense, right? The thing that Chris Mellon wrote, that to me was a little more surprising, but that was fantastic in that essentially the truth of the matter is that he could have provided almost as much value by writing a bad document, because essentially by putting a document out there with a good framework, even if it's not properly fleshed out the way you think it would, it's amazing how that encourages people to jump in and start filling out proper information. It's actually a really good tool to use for people. So, but the challenge is yes, you could absolutely have people that are either have been planning for a long time to somehow take advantage of this in some way, or there are people that are trying to move other legislation or move other things that now see this as a new pawn in their little game. That's a problem. Is that we have now jumped into like one of the most shark infested bodies of water that currently exist on Earth, and there are a lot of influences there that most of us are not aware of. And so the point is that there is, if you care about the shades of gray, okay, then there is a plethora of information for you to absorb, and there is more than that. There is an absolute avalanche of data for you to chew on. If you do not like shades of gray, if you like black and white, if you like Boolean, if you like definite answers, if you like finite decisions, then unfortunately, I don't think you're going to get much happiness out of the next couple of days. Had you've gotten any over the last couple of days, and that you're really likely to get any in the near future, because while this has been encouraging a lot of people to come out, like for example, we do know the person who is heading up the briefing, the hearing. We do know who, I'm not quite sure if I can say their names yet, so I'm refraining from. But we know two of the people that will be actually presenting at the hearing. The names and pictures of those have leaked out to certain media outlets. So we're actually getting a fair amount of information where, I think there's a really good chance that by Tuesday morning, we're already all going to have a pretty good idea as to who's going to be there, who's going to be talking, who's going to be asking questions, and we might even have some idea as to what kind of questions they're going to ask, right? And let's face it, that's the other thing, is that these hearings weren't just invented for UFOs, right? I mean, this whole process is incredibly built into Congress, and it is something that happens automatically. And so it is something that's going to happen however we feel about it, right? I mean, Congress is going to do its thing no matter what we do, right? So it just, like I said, it's going to get extremely frustrating, as if it's not already, for anyone that wants anything like super solid. However, if you enjoy the nuance, I mean, like you said, Chris Mellon's article is fantastic. I mean, he brings up a lot of really interesting points. I mean, you could use his document. Forget it as a questionnaire for a hearing. You could use it as a fantastic skeleton for a one hell of a panel, right? I mean, there's some really good information in there, right, and some really thoughtful topics and so forth. So I think that if essentially, if people use this as a catalyst, if people use this as a motivational tool, if people use this as a scheduling convenience of, well, if I was going to release this information in the next 3 weeks, I might as well release it, that week, because all this other stuff like that, that kind of stuff happens. That more the better. There's nothing wrong with that. But I don't. I guess my challenge is that, to me, if you want data that's going to really move the needle, right, then you have to first ask not what data is available. You have to first ask what data is required, right? And you essentially have to go to people and ask them, like, what is your threshold? What is your threshold, right? And so you start doing this, and you start realizing that, hey, there is nothing. There is no data set. There is no film. There is no anything that is going to convince 90% of the people of anything, right? You might, if you get lucky, get 45% or something like that, right? And so I think that's what makes it very infuriating for people. But if you like the nuance of it, boy, man, you can eat and eat and eat and eat. It's fantastic.
Well, let's face it here. I mean, if the names have leaked out there, who's going to be speaking? I'm going to put some pressure on you here. Who are those names?
See, Dave, I figured that you would do that, so I intentionally didn't include them in my notes. But I do have it'll be science. Because I don't think we mentioned this before. We did find out it'll be Science and Intelligence Officer Sean Kirkpatrick, PhD, who's been picked to head the new
AOIMSG.
AOIMSG. I think of food. It's very hard for me. And I'm usually really good with acronyms too. I mean, I come from a world that did PCMCIA, right? So, please.
Gonna get you to move your microphone up a bit.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. But basically, Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick, U.S. Space Command, will be basically heading up this organization. So, and like I said before, we did find out from Bloomberg today that where's the guy's name? Representative Andrea Carson, an Indiana Democrat, will essentially be, heading up the panel on Tuesday. So we are slowly. And so I guess my point is that, like, one of the weird things about this topic is that when it starts broaching into other areas, what you don't know is are all the normal systems that exist in that world going to trigger, or is there something weird about us, right? They're going to choke on it, and the right systems are not going to trigger, right? And that's one thing you just don't know. And so, if essentially all the right things trigger for a hearing, things that should trigger independent of what kind of hearing it is, then this is the kind of information we should be getting, and we actually should get a lot more, right? We should get a lot more. But I guess my point is that, if we have a problem where, like, you have a bunch of people that are expecting an incredible, nail down, I mean, this is part of the problem we're having right now that I mentioned briefly before, is that when you starting to get close to a deadline like this, you're going to have all these people that are going to start hedging their bets, and they're going to start, making preemptive decisions, right? And so you have people like, Stephen Greenstreet and so forth doing these videos where they're basically deciding, on the data they have, hey, I'm going to determine that this is false, or this is true, or this is BS, or this is not BS. And they're, essentially calling their bets now. And that's one of the things that people get driven to do as a result of all of the, all the emotion and anxiety wrapped around this Tuesday event.
Well, it's going to be very interesting, John, to see how this all plays out, because for many of us, we're all wondering what the answer is going to be. What is success in the eyes of Chris Mellon or the eyes of others who you've talked to for Tuesday?
yeah, to me, like this is something that honestly I've been struggling with myself, in that I no longer have a clear vision of what the goal is, right? Because of the fact that, this is seeming to become so personal for people. And there doesn't seem to be these grand, global acknowledgments or grand global realizations. And so, for me, what I would want to see is I would want to see something equivalent to a true up, right? What I would want to see is I would want to see that at the end of the panel, there's a minimum number of things that they all agree on moving forward, and those can be very minimal. Those can be, there is an outbound intelligence, right? We don't know the source of the intelligence. We don't believe the source of the intelligence is our adversaries, right? I mean, it might be something that simple. It might be something more dramatic, but we need to get everyone to. We need a foundation. We need a base floor to start with, right? And right now, it's one of the reasons why, in the very language of the hearing is talking about the stigma having to be removed. I mean, they're basically having a panel about, just removing the stigma to have a panel when you really look at it.
Well, I think success would be, and I think I'm asking too much here, John. Success would be, at a minimum, that they officially confirm that any of these craft that are being seen in military air bases or around nuclear facilities, because I don't think we're going to get over major cities to quell the public. I think it would be a huge win for the UFO community if they came out and said, we 100% know these craft are not from Earth. I think that's where it starts.
The problem, Dave, is you can't know that. Like, you can't know that for sure. You can be pretty sure, but you can't. All you can. It's incredibly hard to prove something like that. I mean, of anything.
I know that.
Anything. Like, let it be anything, right? I mean, it's. I think the best chance we have of that happening is what Gary Nolan's doing. It's going to be the isotopic ratios. I think that's going to be the only way to prove that it's off-world.
We are going to see, my friend. We are going to see a great unbiased UFO report from the fedora-wearing John Hudson. Well, thank you, John, and I know you'll be back to talk more about this very, very soon. We'll talk to you then, buddy.
Thank you, sir.
All right, let's get to Shirky Poo's news.
What time is it?
It's time for Shirky Poo's news!
Yes, Shirky Poo delivering the goods tonight for all of us. Let's start off here. A woman has revealed that she put her boyfriend's dog down without him knowing, then got kicked out of the house after he found out. Sharing her experience on Reddit, the anonymous woman came at the whole thing from a human side, saying that she absolutely loved the dog, but that it was suffering too badly and had no quality of life. It's a sad fact of life that humans often outlive their beloved pets, but there does come a point where, in many special human-animal relationships, a tough decision has to be made. On this occasion, the woman had noticed that the dog was suffering and decided to take the executive decision to put it down, but didn't go as far as to tell her significant other. The 16-year-old dog had been through enough, and according to her, her boyfriend was ignoring the problem. She explained, "I love this dog beyond words. Let me make that absolutely clear. He was an absolute gift to the world, and I love him unconditionally. The dog was age 16 and had countless medical problems, rotated front legs, which prevented him from getting up, jumping up, being moved, just completely unable to walk, among other things. This dog was in constant agony. Every time the dog tried to get up, he would be screaming in pain. There was nothing the vets could do. It sounds heartbreaking, and the vets told them the best course of action would be to put the dog down. So she gathered the family, with one exception, so they could say goodbye. She continued, I thought about it for a week and decided that I had to. The dog was suffering so much, quality of life just wasn't there. So my boyfriend went out on Friday with some of his mates. I called him to let him know I was putting the dog down. I had the dog put down at home with his family. I was sick of watching my boyfriend dismiss the pain of the dog, and he ignored the vets, telling him it was time. After she told her boyfriend that the vets were coming around, he rushed back to the house, but arrived tragically late. Girlfriend said, I wish my boyfriend was there to say goodbye to his best friend, but he wouldn't have let me go through with it. He rushed home, saw his dead dog, packed up all his stuff, and left. Yeah. Or the girl had to leave. He packed up all her stuff, pardon me. She's been living with her dad the last few weeks. Wow. What do you do about that? What do you do about that? On one hand, the dog was suffering that bad. She probably made the right decision, but it's his dog. Oh, all right. It's blunderful and it's marvelous. A burger expert for a United States restaurant chain Friday says we should be eating burgers upside down. Friday's Flip It Challenge said on their Instagram account, according to our experts, the best way to eat a burger is flip it upside down. The thicker top of the bun soaks up the burger's juices, helping keep that flavor in for longer. That's something to try. Yeah. Well, we're pretty much out of time. So we're going to say good night to each and every one of you. Thank you to Shirky Poo for the news tonight. It was high quality as per usual, Shirky Poo. What time is it? Yeah, it's time for Shirky Poo's news. Thank you to the fedora-wearing John Hudson for the unbiased UFO report. Big thank you to Mr. Swamp Dweller for coming on in with another spooky story. And, of course, the guys from Bedtime Stories with some great insight to their highly successful YouTube channel. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thaw rocking in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at home, at work, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms tonight. YouTube, Twitch, LGAP, Facebook, Space Travelers Club, and on Twitter. I know you're out there somewhere. Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends, we're watching. We own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo Train has docked for the night. But soon, my friend, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we've got room for them too. Good night. All right. What time is it? Time. John Hudson's news.
Cut my call down. There you go.
What's that, buddy?
Oh, no, I was trying to figure out why I sounded so funny. I didn't realize the mic had fallen, so.
Mm-hmm. You need some of that Nick Pope hairdo in order to, Velcro that microphone right to your chest.
There you go. You know what I discovered the other day, Dave? Like on, I don't remember which it is. It's like HBO Plus, or it's one of those streaming theft things that are going on right now. They have the entire catalog of South Park. All of it. Even season one. I've been enjoying that. It's been fun.
First ever episode was about Whitley Strieber with the visitors.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. But actually, so was that the one that ended with Jesus and Santa Claus getting into a fight?
No, that was the one where they figured out that the cows were the intelligent species. And Cartman had the satellite shoved up his ass.
Right.
Yes.
Yes. I like the one where Santa Claus and Jesus tried to beat each other up.
That was good fun. That was a good one. Hello, Nikki, the lovely psychic from Seattle. Semper Fi to you, Black Dragon, our former Marine. And Commonwealth Andrew, good to see you. Good morning. Ed Clater, how you been doing? Mr. Catfish, how are you? Moroku of Night, how are you? Welcome to SOR Chat. And who else am I missing here? I think that's it. Why didn't that download? I swore I downloaded that. No, not yet. What time is it? Nikki, what time is it? Or pardon me, Nicole. What time is it? It's time for Shirky Poo's news. That's hilarious.
It really is.
I love that part. Not gonna lie. I love that part.
Oh, me too. Me too. Me too. It's funny watching all the people still fighting about the that Mars doorway.
How's Canada's weather, Mr. Catfish? It is warming up. It is starting to warm up. We almost hit 50 degrees Fahrenheit today. Almost.
Jeez. What happens to all the syrup?
That's East Coast. I'm West Coast, man.
Okay, look. I heard the other day, I don't know where it was. I hope it wasn't on your show. It might have been. But is it really true? Okay, no, this just sounds too crazy. But is it possible that there are actually storages of syrup like held somewhere?
Yes.
Is that really true?
It's very true.
Cannot believe that story. I was really hoping that was a myth, man. Wow. That really says something. But, you know, I mean, I guess in the grand scheme of things, when you consider how much sugar used to be worth, right? I mean, you know, I guess you're just looking at it. It's just a big.
Have you ever tried? I guess you wouldn't have because you don't know what snow is. But real maple syrup with snow, oh, it's awesome. Awesome.
No. I mean, I used to order my maple syrup from a place in Canada, and it would come as like, you know, supposedly some pretty pure stuff. But no, that's amazing.
Oh yeah, dude.
Millions of gallons stored.
Yeah.
Well, that's nice. So then, if the sun gets blotted out, we know where we're getting all of our calories from.
Mm-hmm. I like honeybees, man.
We could just live sugar high for how many decades. Yeah, no, we have an oil reserve. Canada has a maple syrup reserve. Oh man, this is why fiction's more fun, because it's so hard to believe some of this stuff. I mean, I really didn't believe the whole dollar scratch and sniff thing. That's insane.
No, that was a myth.
No, it's not a myth, Dave. Okay, let me put it this way, okay? There was a very, very nice woman who worked for a perfume company, and her job was to smell things and then break down what was in them. Okay, like that's what she does. Like that's her specialty. And 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 she was able to basically, try it with one of the bills herself. And she said, "Look, I don't know if it's scratch and sniff. I don't know if it was intended this way, but what I can tell you is that when you scratch that, the chemicals that are normally used to synthesize the maple syrup smell are present."
Doesn't exist. It's a rumor.
I mean, I've honestly, I've smelled it myself, but I didn't think that doesn't mean anything because you could be totally tricking yourself,
Totally tricking yourself.
And it was only on one. It was only on was it the $100 bill?
Yes. Yes. Does Canada's $100 bill
Scratch and sniff maple syrup.
smell like maple syrup? For the record, bank official Jeremy Harrison said
not.
no scent has been
Part of their
added to
security.
the maple mystery. Was born soon after the first polymer note. The $100 bill was released in November 2011 and has persisted in cyberspace since.
Like I said, all I know is that like this woman, I mean, her entire job is to, I mean, and she's one of these crazy women. Like you can basically give her any smell and she'll be like, it's it's this and it's this and it's this. Like that. She's one of those women that has her ability to smell insured, because like it's. No, I don't, but I do have quarters that have been cut so you can split them
Simon
apart,
Condon.
and you can store stuff inside them, which is kind of cool. However, I found that most American money doesn't like most American money. All you can hold is like a note. You can't hold like a memory card. If you get like the British pound, that is a good coin for hiding stuff in. That's a nice thick coin. The Canada, you guys have a couple nice thick coins too. You can hide a whole memory chip in there.
I did something today that I have never, ever done in my life, John. I bought stock.
Wait, you've never ever done that before?
Never.
Wow. Well, congratulations, Dave. That's awesome.
I come from a very ultra conservative family when it comes to money, that you don't spend money on risk. And I decided that to get out of my fear.
You bought TTSA stock.
I bought TTSA stocks. No. No, I did not.
Oh, too funny. I was just joking.
I bought stock in a gold company called Argonaut Gold Inc. It was recommended to do so by the Motley Fool, which is a highly recommended company who does a lot of good homework. And I've had people who I trust.
Problem is, they share their good homework with everybody.
Yeah. So that's what I did.
Good for you, Dave.
I bought it at $1.27 and I lost 4 cents so far on day one. Yes. So
I sadly had to sell it in the end, but at one point I was up, I think I was up like 2,000% on Tesla stock. Like if you bought early enough, it was nutty. But the thing about stock is and this is like this is one of the best pieces of advice I've ever gotten. And the 2 times that I've followed this advice, I've reaped massive financial rewards from. Now, keep in mind, for me, what I mean by massive financial rewards is, I mean, like, turning like, $5 grand into 50 grand or something like that, right? And it's this simple thing is only buy stocks in companies whose products you actually use and love. And as soon as you stop using them, sell the stock. And you can modify it a bit. You can say, well, it might be something that you want to buy that you haven't bought yet, or that you used to own that you don't own anymore. But hey man, Oak Island. Well, I wouldn't look at that for Oak Island as an investment opportunity at all.
Sure, you would. You have an addiction to that island.
No, I love that island. I'm just not saying I don't think it's a good investment opportunity. No, I'm all in with that island. I love that island. Like I've gotten like some of the greatest little like tidbits of history out of that show that have stitched together other stories. Like it's mind-boggling. That island fills a lot of gaps in a lot of world history in a weird sort of way. But what I was going to say about Oak Island is that I'm telling you, man, once they do this muon scan, it's over. I mean, it's over. There's no more guessing. It's just, oh look, there's an opening. Oh look, there's a cave. Oh look, there's a tunnel. Go see what's in there. Oh, it's natural. Okay, move on. Check this one. Oh, it's not natural. Yay. As opposed to what they've been doing for the last, I don't know how many years, which is, drop a can, 160 feet into the ground until they hit bedrock. And then when they don't find the treasure, they pick the can up, move it 6 inches and drop it again. It's amazing engineering. Really, the engineering of it by itself is astounding. And some of the stuff they found on that island is so truly bizarre. Like they found a cross that is it's very clearly a Phoenician cross, and some of the metals in it they know only come from this one little region in France. So like how the hell did metal that was mined in the south of France end up in a Phoenician cross around someone's neck that ended up on Oak Island 400 years ago, and they dropped it? It's like, that's just bizarre. Like, so bizarre. I don't get it. Yeah, but no, I would not invest in Oak Island. Treasure is not. Actually, I take that back. You know what? I shouldn't say that anymore. There are a couple treasure companies now operating that actually seem to be turning a profit and actually have investors and actually are trying to run treasure recovery as a business, like a real business where they predict finds and they predict the statistical likelihood of finding what they think they're going to find. And like, it all becomes very kind of like, that's actually happening. People are actually doing that. It's really mind-boggling. Really quite, I know it's a weird way of phrasing it, but like, I'm really proud of them for doing that. Like, that's hard, really hard.
That's underway. See what we can find here. See what's going on in Africa. We're doing some zooming in right now. Trying to find some shit. Nothing. You got nothing. Nothing there. The minute we want to go live. Nothing at Rosie's Pan. I'm trying here, guys, because I know you love it.
Actually, Dave, it's just you, bud. We all just enjoy
No,
it.
I get
We like
requests
you.
for this. I get requests for this.
It's because the only thing you ever show. Poor
Well,
people are
there's-
desperate.
I'm
Give them
kinda
saltine crackers, and the starving person will be like, "Ooh, more saltine crackers."
I'm kind of limited.
It's awesome if you go to YouTube, like on a browser, it says, it says Creepypasta time, and then it shows the preview of the of the savannah. That's awesome.
Nice.
Oh, hey, Jeremy was on that UFO podcast. Interesting. I love those guys. That UFO podcast, I really love that show. I have to admit, though, part of the reason why is because I love that song so much. You've heard that song, right? Where Sean Cahill is actually doing the vocals on it.
I have not heard that one yet.
It's basically the end. I think it's the exit song that they used for that show, and it's basically like there's like a spoken word aspect to the song, and it's Sean Cahill that did it. And it's good. It's really good. I really like it.
Well, Rob Zombie does have a good singing voice.
That's the rumor.
Mm-hmm.
God, that one picture that I saw of him in Vegas with his hair all out, it's like, wow, that was cool.
Oh, yeah, dude.
He really did have that whole lion thing going.
The Mystic Lion. There's a reason why he's called it.
Oh, hey, Dave, when is the next report due out?
I think it's every 6 months.
So
starting
doesn't that mean... I'm now wondering like what sort of influence this hearing might have over that report. You know what I mean?
I don't know.
And which report after this might be the one that is influenced. Because here's one aspect of what I was talking about when I was talking about the normal baseball of the hearings that might play into our favor or not, but there are things that we don't have any control over, and that is that there will be a certain number of Congress people involved in this hearing that are not there about the hearing. They're there about something completely different. And they are there to basically gain some advantage or favor that allows them to then have influence over what they're getting. And to me, this is going to cause a very interesting and potentially serious problem because, potentially, you could have, people grandstanding on the wrong issues, but hopefully people grandstanding on the right issues. But the point is that you're going to have people who suddenly decide, this is my moment. This is my chance. This is my chance to make that point that I've been trying to make that's going to lock that election or take out that this or do whatever it is, right? And that's where things get fun. That's where people get a little nutty and start doing unpredictable things. And that's what you want. You want completely like emotional, unpredictable, sideways, random stuff to happen. That's the best thing we could hope for.
Rock and roll, buddy.
All they want is planned and methodical, and they want no surprises. All we could ever hope for is as many surprises as possible. That hearing should be absolute chaos. It won't be, but it should be.
Well, it all starts. The Pandora's box starts to get open. How far will they open it? We don't know.
Throw a flip flop. Maybe not a whole shoe.
Don't know.
Throwing a shoe is kind of violent, I guess.
Right?
Well, and the thing is that I mean, like, look at that Bloomberg article, right? So the quote that was the headline for the Bloomberg article was the guy who's doing the panel saying, well, somebody had to do it. I'm not kidding. That's the quote.
That doesn't surprise me, buddy.
That's the
That doesn't
quote.
surprise me at
I mean,
all.
it's like, that's the quote. And it's like, what?
Hey, I'll be right back.
Look, it says right there, somebody has to, you can't see it. It says somebody has to do it. You know, like he's basically saying to himself, well, my career is over anyway. I got nothing to do next Tuesday. Sure, I'll chair your crazy hearing. Yeah, 7-term lawmaker will oversee the hearing. 7 terms. 7 terms. Can you imagine serving 7 terms? Can you imagine even explaining to the freaking revolutionaries that anyone would ever serve 7 terms? Yeah, the thing is that everyone that creates a hearing, that validates a hearing, that okays a hearing, that any of that stuff, like, they're doing it because they think they're going to get something, you know, like they think they're going to like get something for it, or like not necessarily direct payout, but like it's going to do something for them. It's going to change something, you know. And we don't know what those things are, and we don't know what their motivations are, or any of that stuff. So it's you know, I guess my point is that you could see people make moves that are making moves that have absolutely nothing to do with that hearing, but still end up having a huge effect on the hearing. And that could go positive or negative. There's no way of knowing. But in light of the fact that midterms are coming up, and in light of just all the condition of politics right now in Washington, Tuesday could be a freaking bloodbath. Could also be a total snoozeville. So hard to say. At the moment, who am I talking to? I'm talking to all of you because Dave bailed. Dave will be back. I love the name Zero Cool. That movie was horrible, but it came at a very good time in culture. Well, that's the other, Cindy. That's the other. Oh, Devil Inside, hands down. Give me a break. What's your favorite INXS song? What a silly question. Cindy, that's the other thing we can secretly hope for, is that one of the either some of the branches will suddenly start showing their exasperation with a third branch, or you might have certain branches using this as an opportunity to then take advantage of another branch, right? For example, you get the feeling that everyone's a little mad at the Air Force. And so you might be able to get a lot of consensus there as to, get them. If I didn't have a cool hat, what would I wear? I have no idea.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. I'll just add to the other list of things I'm holding against you.
Yeah, I know.
Our government is weak when it comes to information sharing. No. Our government is very, very good at preventing information sharing, which is what they see one of their core purposes of being is. So they're good at it. Yeah, Devil Inside, man. That album.
We
Wow,
talk
that was
it
great.
in excess.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was the only album that I ever had anyone try to say that if you played it backwards you could hear some like talking, and I remember them doing it for that song and me listening to it and being like, I don't know what you were all smoking, but you're not sharing because that's not what was said. It's so funny. It's funny. I still have the audio file in my head of that song playing backwards. I can remember the whole soundbite backwards on a scratchy record with bad speakers. It's some girl's house. I don't even remember the name of.
Do 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 do. Here comes Fedora. Look in his eyes.
Did you ever see Pearl Jam in concert, Dave?
No.
Saw Pearl Jam once, and for an encore, he came out and did a cappella Teenage Wasteland, and it was a freaking religious event. It really was. It was an absolute religious. I was blown away. That guy's got pipes.
I don't have a fly on my sweatpants. So, yes, I did go tinkle. As a matter of fact.
Oh, I thought this was
My
a whole flying your
favorite
soup thing.
In Excess song. Oh, what's it called?
They did other songs? Yes, they did.
Is
Creative Nomad Jukebox MP3 Player. Rock on Zero Cool. That's awesome.
My favorite In Excess song was Never Tear Us Apart.
See, that just makes me think of like junior high school dances.
Do they even do dances at high schools anymore? I don't think they do here.
I have no idea. Well, they still do prom. That's a dance.
Like when I was in high school, you had the fall dance, you had the winter Christmas dance. We never called it. The only time we called it prom up here was for graduation.
Oh, interesting. Oh, Alice in Chains, man. That album Dirt. That album Dirt actually got me through some hard times. I got to admit that album did. That album really did get me through some hard times. Sorry, I got totally distracted, David. And I was going to respond to what you said. What were you to say? You said something interesting. Damn it! I got distracted by the song.
I like Alice in Chains.
Yeah, good stuff.
I did think that Jane's Addiction was a little overrated.
It's hard because overrated, yes, but at the same time underrated. Like they got overrated so early that like I don't think they were really appreciated for what they actually were good at. And in my opinion, what they were really good at is concerts. Jane's
I saw
Addiction.
Alice in Chains in concert open up for Guns N' Roses.
How are they?
Well, they were great. I really enjoyed them. I mean, you know, like I said, I really enjoyed listening to them.
That's good, but the problem is that it depends so much on who they're traveling with, but most of the venue, and so there are certain venues that are really hard to get to sound good, then there's other bands that just like I don't know if it was like the day, but like I saw like No Doubt once in concert, and they did not sound anything at all like anything that I'd ever heard from them before. Very disturbing. Very, 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 very disturbing. But like 3 days, man, that song 3 days, like Jane's Addiction 3 days, and Sonic the Hedgehog on the Sega Genesis. And a little bit of double lettuce made for one hell of an afternoon. Many, many moons ago. Good stuff.
Well, Fedora,
songs.
I'm
Yes,
about to
yes.
call it the night because
Yes. I should have a while ago because my little girl's waiting for me. But yeah, you get up early. But yeah, it's been fun, Dave, and you have a good evening, my friend.
You too, my friend, and thank you to all our listeners who tuned in this week. Really appreciate you, and big thank
Damn
you
straight.
tonight to Smithy, D. Cohen, Shelley, Cat Chaser, and Angel for the amazing super chats. It really helps support what we do on Spaced Out Radio on a nightly basis. So thank you so much. And a big thank you to everyone who will tune in this weekend. Jessica Jones, the Cryptid Huntress, with Off the Trails, coming up on Saturday and Sunday, starting at 7 p.m. Pacific, followed by After Hours, led by the Big Willie, coming on up this weekend on Saturday and Sunday. You guys have a great weekend. I'm heading out in the forest, find Bigfoot. We'll talk to you guys on Monday, where my guest will be Sally Elka. We're going to talk about remote viewing. Talk to you guys then. See you later.